Chapter 3850. You can search on Baidu for Enchantress Charming Doctor, Heaven Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father, Wonderbrush Pavilion. Find the latest chapter. His gaze swept past Yun Ruhan and Wei Mian before finally landing on Luo Yu. Then, he slowly sighed and a complicated expression appeared on his face. Are you all blaming me? Yun Ruhan's hand once again gripped the hilt of the Ice Soul sword tightly. On the other hand, Luo Yu had long lost his memory and had no feelings for the man in front of him. Hearing his words, she didn't feel anything. She was just disgusted by his pretentious manner. Wei Mian's lips moved, and after a while, he said hoarsely, "Just now, was what they said true? Back then, Your Majesty, it was you who wanted the lives of the Shao, Wei, and Shi families, as well as my 30,000 soldiers." Lan Yaozong pondered for a while before curling his lips and revealing a calm smile. "Yes, it was my order. But official Wei, you can't blame me for this. If you want to blame someone, blame your relatives for becoming too powerful and trying to interfere with my political power. If you and the Empress had known to avoid arousing suspicion and bide your time, you wouldn't have ended up like this." Wei Mian's body trembled uncontrollably. His eyes were bloodshot, and his voice was sometimes sharp and sometimes broken, almost inaudible. "So, all of this is our own fault. So our Shao family, Wei family, Shi family, and the tens of thousands of lives that died in vain should be grateful and thank you for your grace." Lan Yaozong frowned and sneered. "Wei Mian, do you know why your three families suffered back then? It's because of your arrogant and despotic attitude. You can go and ask anyone in this world. Which monarch in this world would allow his imperial power to be taken away? Which monarch would sit back and watch his relatives meddle in politics and climb over my head? Now that things have come to this, you don't reflect on yourselves and even blame me." Wei Mian clenched his fists tightly, and blood dripped from the gaps of his fingers. Tears fell from his eyes unknowingly. Behind him, Tu Fu, Ruan Yang, and the others were also filled with righteous indignation. They wanted to rush forward and tear Lan Yaozong into pieces. But before they could make a move, they were stopped by Mu Yan. "Are you stupid?" The corners of Mu Yan's lips curled up as she lightly scolded her subordinates, but her smile didn't reach her eyes in the slightest. The tradition of that group of people from the Lan family empire is to be shameless and ungrateful. You guys actually tried in vain to reason with them. Aren't you looking for trouble? Luo Yu said gloomily, "Why do I feel that eldest brother and I are being attacked?" Mayan pats him on the shoulder. "Be good, it has nothing to do with you and big brother. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. A beast that would not even spare its own flesh and blood was not qualified to be called a father. As early as 20 years ago, you and eldest senior brother already had nothing to do with the Lan family empire. Shao 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 is his sect, and brother is junior is Shao Shao sect Ri R is has is yen." Yun Ruhan trembled slightly when she heard this, and her grip on the hilt of her sword slowly loosened. He looked at the two of them and shook his head with a helpless smile. "Little Seven, don't try to comfort me with little junior sister. I'm not as weak as you think. 20 years ago, he was an abandoned existence. He was just a pawn in the hands of the Blue Glory sect that could be summoned and dismissed at any time, a nightmare. For him, Shao Qi was the only family member he cared about. The Blue Brilliant sect had given him nothing but their bloodline. Now, even that bit of bloodline had been completely severed." Chapter 3851. Just as junior sister said, he was Yun Ruhan. He was no longer the Crown Prince Lan Luohan who could be manipulated by Lan Yaozong. Lan Yaozong did not notice the psychological changes of his two sons at all. In other words, he did not care. He put on a fatherly expression on his face and said softly, "All right, Imperial Father admits that Imperial Father was wrong back then and made you suffer a lot. But I had no choice. This is the helplessness of an emperor. Shao Qi, when the day comes that you sit on my throne, you will understand my difficulties. Luoyu blinked and pointed at himself. Me? Lan Yaozong saw his expression and thought that he was too happy. The corners of his mouth curled up. Silly child, you are my only legitimate son, the crown prince. Although your mother's clan has made a mistake, they have already been punished. In the future, Imperial Father will not bother about this matter. If I don't pass the throne to you, who will it pass to? This is a matter of course. You don't need to be so excited. Luoyu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Which eye of yours saw that I'm excited? My goal is the sea of stars. Who cares about your lousy throne? But before Luoyu could refute, Lan Yaozong continued, but now, Qingfen has lost his mind because of hatred. He wants to destroy the floating island and the 10,000 years of our Lan family. If you want to stop him, the only way is to take the Avicii Pagoda from his hands. Without the Avicii Pagoda, no one can destroy the heaven-reaching halberd that supports the floating island. Then, Shao Qi, your empire will be safe. So, Shao Qi, can you persuade your senior sister to give me the Avicii Pagoda? Luoyu almost rolled his eyes. He really didn't expect his so-called biological father to be so shameless. He would not admit that this scum had anything to do with him and his senior brother. Sorry, who are you? Luoyu's lips curled up, revealing two cute dimples. She said innocently, my eldest senior brother and I grew up in the Shaoyao sect. My master told me that I only have a mother who died early. As for my father, he died 800 years ago and his corpse was eaten by wild dogs. Why did you suddenly jump out and say that you are my father? Is there any proof? Why don't you let me see the bite marks on your body? Pu ci. Someone at the side couldn't help but laugh out loud. Gu Feiping, in particular, laughed so hard that he rocked back and forth, shouting at the top of his voice, it's rare to see even a dog on this floating island. I've never seen a wound that's been bitten by a dog. Your Majesty, take off your clothes for us to see. Ha 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 ha, the crowd burst into mocking laughter. The laughter came from the people of Liberty City, as well as from the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects. The Blue Glory sect's shamelessness and disgust made everyone want to vomit. Beitang Zhan and the others knew that they weren't good people, but they couldn't help but be amazed by the Blue Glory sect's actions. The Blue Glory sect's face became more and more gloomy, and the spiritual power around him soared. A terrifying pressure was unleashed. At the same time, half of the men in black who had surrounded Yi Qingfeng dashed over. With strange steps, they surrounded the 7 people of the Shaoyao sect. The 1,000-knife-cutting chain in his hand emitted a dazzling cold light. The laughter around stopped abruptly. Chapter 3852. It was not only because of the pressure released by Lan Yaozong, nor because of the black-clothed man holding the 1,000-knife-cutting chain. It was also because of the dense flying boats that came from afar. In an instant, the entire Lan Emperor's camp was surrounded. On each flying boat, there were hundreds of soldiers wearing the same clothes. On the leading flying ship stood a man in armor with an ugly ghost mask on his face. The moment they saw him, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, and their faces were filled with horror. Is he the Dark Knight General, Lord Ghostmask? How is this possible? Didn't Lord Ghostface die 10,000 years ago? Wei Mian suddenly took a step forward and stared at the ghost-masked man on the flying boat. His eyes were full of horror. General Wei. Hearing Mu Yan's voice, Wei Mian took a deep breath and said slowly, Miss, on the floating island, there have only been 2 god-level battle generals. One is me, and the other is Ghost Mask who disappeared 10,000 years ago. But, it is clearly recorded in the Lan Empire's ancient books that General Ghost Mask died in a war. Tu Fu said with a trembling voice, since Ghost Mask, there has been no more god-level battle generals on the floating island until our general appeared. Mu Yen frowned slightly, watching the ghost-masked man fly down and kneel in front of Lan Yaozong. Greetings, Your Majesty. Lan Yaozong raised his hand. Rise. The haze on his face had dissipated, and a condescending smile hung on the corner of his mouth again. Yi Huang and the others, who were bound by the thousand-knife-cutting net, and were already on the verge of death, immediately struggled frantically when they saw the ghostly face. Ghost Mask. Ghost Mask. You traitor, you ungrateful beast, you are still alive, and you dare to come out. Ghost Mask stood up and looked at the four people on the ground mockingly. Of course I am still alive, but the four of you, hee, as Lan Chu-Shi's trusted subordinates, you were so arrogant and superior. How did you become like this? Yi Aishan's eyes were bloodshot as he gnashed his teeth and said, Ghostface, aren't you afraid of suffering retribution? Back then, when you were in trouble, it was Master who saved you, helped you cultivate, made you a battle general, and even gave you the authority to command the Lan family's personal guards. What has Master done wrong to you? You want to betray us at the last minute, kidnap Night Slave, and put his only son in such a desperate situation. Back then, before Lan Xiaozi died, he left behind many backup plans for his only son. Grimace was one of them. Although there were not many people who could go to the floating island, there was a secret guard whose cultivation exceeded the tribulation stage. Under the command of Ghostface, a god-level warrior, it was not an exaggeration to say that they were invincible on the floating island. Who knew that Grimace would betray Lan Chu-Shi at the most critical moment? Instead, he helped the Lan family side branch to capture Yi Nu and cripple his cultivation to threaten Lan Chu-Shi. That was why Lan Chu-Shi had fallen into such a desperate situation. Ghost Mask sneered and looked at Yi Qingfeng with a cold gaze. His eyes flickered with intense jealousy and hatred. I can only blame Lan Chu-Shi for being too biased. I'm obviously the most loyal to the Lan family and the person who can help him the most. But the good things he obtained from Wushang Palace were all given to Yi Nu, this bitch. Yi Nu's strength has improved by leaps and bounds, and he will soon ascend to the Shushan continent with young master. But I can only stay on this isolated island that can collapse at any time. Chapter 38-53. Why? Those opportunities to improve cultivation in a short time, those power and status, should belong to me. Since the young master is heartless, don't blame me for being unjust. With my talent, there are many people who are willing to appreciate me. The Lan family empire is one of them. It's not me who killed Lan Chu-Shi, but his own unfairness and incompetence, and that bitch Yi Nu ha. Ghostface laughed for a while, then looked at Yi Qingfeng. He wanted to see an expression of regret on the face of the person he had hated for thousands of years. However, what he saw was Yi Qingfeng's slowly curling mouth and bright smile. Ghostface's heart suddenly jumped, and he screamed, "What are you laughing at?" Yi Qingfeng slowly lowered his eyes and did not answer him. His fingers gently stroked the scarred small halberd in his palm, and he whispered in his heart. "Chu-Shi, do you see? All the people who have hurt you are finally gathered, no one is missing, don't worry. Wait a little longer. Soon, I will come to the Yellow Spring with their lives to find you." Seeing Yi Qingfeng like this, the hatred in Ghostface's heart could not help but surge like lava. Seeing Yi Qingfeng like this, the hatred in Ghostface's heart could not help but surge like lava. But Lan Yaozong stopped him. "General Ghostface, the most important thing now is to take back the Avicii Pagoda. We will deal with the grievances between you and Qingfeng later." His smile was gentle, and his eyes were full of trust when he looked at Ghostface. I promise that this time, I will not stop you from doing anything. It's time for Qing Feng to be taught a lesson for what he did. Ghostface revealed a smile, and looked at the people of the Xiaoyao sect together with Lan Yaozong. But this time, Lan Yaozong's eyes when looking at Luo Yu and Yun Ruhan did not have the kindness and gentleness that he pretended before. Little Seven, I gave you a chance. But you let me down. He raised his hand and slowly pressed down, Ghostface, I will not leave a single chicken or dog in Xiaoyao City. Yes. Wei Mian trembled all over, and his divine sense spread out. The 100,000 Xiaoyao army moved in an instant, protecting Mu Yan and the others from all sides. Ghostface seemed not to care about Wei Mian's action, and slowly raised his hand. The flying ship in the air followed his movements and quickly descended. 100,000 fully armed soldiers in black armor descended from the sky. 100,000 carefree army soldiers against 100,000 black-armored soldiers. The battle was about to begin. Grimace stared at Wei Mian without blinking and suddenly chuckled, You're Wei Mian, the divine general who succeeded me. From the looks of it now, it's just a so-so. Ghostface's voice was sometimes hoarse and sometimes sharp. It was as if many voices were stacked on top of each other, making it seem extremely strange. Little fellow, don't tell me you think that you'll have a chance of winning against me just because we're both god-level battle generals with an army of 100,000. King Wei swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and a drop of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His face was also slightly pale. As a general, Wei Mian had always been conceited and arrogant. Because in the past 1,000 years, there was not a single champion on the entire floating island who could surpass his strength. However, when the ghostly face descended, their seas of consciousness collided. Wei Mian felt as if his spiritual consciousness was being suppressed. The Xiaoyao army was indeed strong, brave and loyal. But in the end, they had only been in the army for less than a year, and most of them were just ordinary people without any cultivation before they came out of the rocky mound. Chapter 38-54. How could such a rookie army fight against the 100,000 black-armored soldiers led by the Dark Knight General, Ghost Mask? Suddenly, a hand gently pressed on Wei Mian's shoulder. As soon as Wei Mian turned his head, he saw the bright smile of his little highness. And this smile seemed to have suddenly poured a stream of clear spring water into his body. The humbleness, fear, and nervousness that had been lingering in his heart dissipated in an instant. Luo Yu didn't comfort Wei Mian. Instead, she looked at Ghost Mask and said with a faint smile, This shameful general, haven't you heard of this saying? In the Yangtze River, the new waves push the old waves, and the old waves die on the beach. It's no longer your time to be here. What's so strange about Uncle Wei defeating you? Just don't say that my Uncle Wei bullied the old and the weak. In the Yangtze River, the new waves push the old waves, and the old waves die on the beach. Ghost Mask had never heard of this saying, but the meaning was so easy to understand. His face behind the mask darkened instantly. He turned to look at Lan Yaozong and said with a sinister smile, Your Majesty, the battle will begin soon. Swords and sabers have no eyes. If the two little highnesses are hurt, Lan Yaozong still had a faint and noble smile on his face. His eyes were kind, and he looked like a wise ruler. But his words were bone-chilling, General Ghost Mask, you must be joking. After two rebellious subjects rebelled, how could they deserve the title of Highness? If they die here today, it's because they were unfilial and unfilial. They deserve it. Lan Yaozong's words satisfied Ghost Mask. Almost immediately, he soared into the sky and let out a long roar. The next moment, 100,000 black-armored soldiers of the Blue Emperor immediately surrounded Mu Yan and the others. Uncle Wei, you should have more confidence in yourself and the 100,000 soldiers of Liberty City. You're the general under my 6th senior sister. In the future, you'll be an invincible, peerless general who can dominate the three realms. A mere old man is nothing. Wei Mian took a deep breath. He repeated the words of His Little Highness in his mind. Then, he soared into the sky without hesitation. His divine sense, which was as boundless as the sea, was released without reservation. Even now, he didn't think he could defeat Ghost Mask. But he was the only general of Liberty City. If he retreated, who would the 100,000 carefree army soldiers fight for? Who is going to defend the dignity of Liberty City? The divine senses of the two deity-level battle generals connected to their respective armies of 100,000. In the blink of an eye, the two sides collided. But this time, the people of Liberty City were panicking. He was facing the Blue Emperor's black armored army, whose cultivation was one level higher than his. Did they really have a chance of winning? Doubt in the heart leads to a weak will, and a weak will leads to a weak will to fight. The battle had not yet begun, but everyone could already see the ending. The smile on Lan Yaozong's face became even brighter. His eyes flickered without a trace of reluctance or concern. However, at this moment, a melodious tune rang out from the east side of the martial arts arena. Then, it shot into the clouds and spread throughout the entire Blue Thearchus camp. The situation that was supposed to be one-sided began to reverse at this moment. Lan Yaozong's eyes widened as he suddenly turned around to look at the girl who was floating in the air and playing the zither. A look of disbelief appeared on his face. The other people in Blue Emperor's camp reacted slightly slower than Blue Glory sect. But gradually, some people began to see the clues. Am I seeing things? The Xiaoyao army is starting to gain the upper hand. Chapter 38:55. When the sound of the zither started, neither the Black Armor army nor the Carefree army noticed anything different. It's just that the Carefree army vaguely felt that their physical strength seemed to be endless. And with their cultivation, they originally couldn't fully understand and accept the command of a general. However, with the melodious sound of the zither, they felt that their sea of knowledge began to expand in a short time. The accuracy and sensitivity of their divine sense also improved unknowingly. On the other hand, the Black Armor army began to become sluggish, their hands and feet heavy and stiff. Everyone's cultivation was clearly higher than their opponents, but they couldn't even bring out 70% of their strength. Wei Mian turned to look at Mu Yan in shock. For a moment, he even forgot to command the army to fight. He always knew that his city lord was a powerful musician. She could heal, fight, and assist. It was also because of Mu Yan's assistance that the battle against the Over-the-Wave Temple was so easy. But the strength of the Over-the-Wave Temple was much worse than the 100,000 Carefree army. Only 1/3 of the army participated in that battle. Wei Mian was confident that even without assistance, he could still win. So much so that he never thought that the assistance of a musician could have such terrifying power. That was simply more heaven-defying than him, a general. Wei Mian vaguely remembers. A long time ago, when his master taught him to become a general, he once said, "There is such a group of musicians in the world. They are more terrible than a general. One person controls 10,000 people. One person fights on the left. Unhindered in the three realms, invincible and invincible." Master once said, "What are those musicians called?" Wei Mian's eyes widened, staring at the girl with fluttering clothes under the blazing sun. Master's voice flashes through his mind. Like a god, like a demon, pampered by the heavens. With a zither in hand, peerless. People separated the musicians of this school and gave them a title. They were called Shin musicians. Someone once predicted that if one day the strongest general could unite with the strongest Shin musicians, then the army they commanded would be invincible and invincible. Wei Mian still remembers when he was young, his blood boiling when he heard this, and he asked Master where the Shin musicians were. Young and arrogant, he was not afraid of anything. He wanted to find such a musician and build an invincible army with him. However, his master told him, perhaps the heavens are jealous of the talented. The Kamikaze sect was completely destroyed 20 years ago. There are no more Shin musicians in the world, nor will there be an invincible army. The young Wei Mian only felt regret. Later on, when he came into contact with real musicians, he found that it was already difficult for one person to assist tens or hundreds of cultivators. Therefore, Wei Mian felt that his master was exaggerating and even laughed at him for being young and naive. However, at this very moment, his master's words appeared in his mind, word by word. Memories from a long time ago and the feeling of his blood boiling slowly awakened in his body. Could it be that Miss was a Shin musician? Didn't Master say that the Shin musicians have already been destroyed? But if that wasn't the case, how could such a miraculous scene appear? Clang! A high-pitched music exploded in Wei Mian's mind. He shuddered and woke up. He meets Mayan's smiling face. The girl's black hair is flying, her clothes fluttering, like a fairy from the ninth heaven descending from the sky. She doesn't speak, but those peach blossom eyes seem to be telling him, General Wei, what are you still staring at? Is this your battlefield? Alluring Enchantress, heaven-defying baby black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 3856. Wei Mian closed his eyes. A spirited smile slowly bloomed on his face, which had been worn down by suffering. Just like when he was young. He had never been more sure than at that moment that he could win, that he could defeat the divine general of the Dark Knight, whom he used to look up to. He had never been more sure than at that moment that one day, the carefree army in his hands would be unparalleled in the three realms. In the martial arts practice field of the Blue Emperor's encampment, there was a lot of discussion in the beginning. Then, there was complete silence. The people of the three alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects all looked ashen and cold. Before that, they had thought that it would be a piece of cake for the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects to join hands to deal with a small Liberty City. That was why Yi Shuasong had used and schemed against Liberty City so ruthlessly. However, at this moment, they realized how naive they had been. Would they really be able to resist the free and unfettered army created by a god-level warrior and this godlike assistant musician? They couldn't help but think of the girl's powerful words. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll eliminate them. Are you really ready to fight Liberty City head-on? Everyone couldn't help but shiver. Their faces were pale, and they were trembling. After this battle, would Liberty City settle the score with them after the fall? No. They didn't have to wait until after this battle. Could they still win this battle? Could they still walk out of the Blue Emperor's encampment alive? Everyone couldn't help but look at the Blue Glorious sect. They were no longer able to decide the outcome of this battle. The private soldiers of the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects had all been attacked by Yi Qingfeng's Dark Knight army. Now, even their lair had been destroyed. 90% of the high-level cultivators on the floating island were gathered here, but they were no match for Yi Qingfeng and his companions. Although some people despised the Blue Glorious sect's actions, but if Yi Qingfeng won, the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects would be finished. The entire floating island would be finished. The Blue Glorious sect's face couldn't be described as ugly. He would never have thought that the trump card he had carefully prepared would be used. The Black Armor army that he had raised for so many years had been waiting for a head-on strike to make Yi Qingfeng kneel before him and beg for mercy. But in the end, it had been destroyed by an insignificant Liberty City. That musician, there was actually such a terrifying musician in the world. Lan Yaozong retracted his gaze from Mu Yen. His eyes were filled with shock and greed. But it was quickly covered up. He had endured for decades and knew very well what was most important now. That trash, ghastly mask, couldn't even deal with a mere champion defender. When the Dark Knight army was defeated, things would get out of hand. Lan Yaozong looked at the dozen heaven-breaking realm experts and moved his fingers slightly. The dozen or so people immediately brandished the 1,000 knife chains in their hands and attacked Yun Rohan's group. The Blue Glorious Sect's method was very simple. Didn't Liberty City want to resist? But when those little fellows fell into his hands, he would like to see who the 100,000 free unfettered army listened to. However, before those men in black could make a move, suddenly, the ground, which had only been shaking slightly, started to shake violently. Even the ground of the martial arts arena, which was paved with the hardest spiritual crystal, started to crack. A bone-chilling cold air mixed with wisps of black mist pervaded the air. The correct chapter of Alluring Enchantress, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father, will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There are no advertisements on the site. Please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like Alluring Enchantress, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father, please collect. Chapter 3857. What? What's going on? What's going on? Avicii Pagoda, look at the Avicii Pagoda. Everyone who was watching the battle looked up at the same time. Their souls almost flew out of their bodies when they saw it. Unknowingly, the small Avicii Pagoda had grown to the size of a mountain. The pagoda also started to spin violently. Yi Qingfeng's water qilin had already moved far away. However, it was still spitting out water droplets. However, these water droplets were mixed with strands of black and red. From afar, it looked like coagulated blood. Destruction. The destruction has begun. How could this be? Alliance Leader Yi, didn't you say that the Avicii Pagoda needs at least 6 hours to be fully activated? There was no sign at all. How? How could it have begun? The veins on Lan Yaozong's forehead were throbbing. He almost couldn't control his hysteria. What kind of perseverance did he have to endure these past 10 years? Only then could he wait for his broken body to recover bit by bit. How could he lose? He should be the final winner. Do it. He must kill Yi Qingfeng immediately. Lan Yaozong's order was quickly transmitted to the people surrounding Yi Qingfeng. He didn't care about the unwillingness and jealousy in his heart anymore. He had to win. Even if Yi Qingfeng died, he had to win. However, the next moment, Lan Yaozong's eyes suddenly widened. He felt a cold touch on his neck. A slender, pale hand was strangling his neck with a moderate amount of force. Lan Yaozong's body stiffened as he turned his head to look. His pupils shrank. He saw his trusted subordinates that he had trained for thousands of years. At this moment, they were all beheaded on the ground, blood flowing everywhere. They were all killed by Yi Qingfeng alone. They didn't even have the power to fight back. Lan Yaozong's body couldn't help but tremble. He slowly looked at the man in front of him, who didn't have any emotions from the beginning to the end. He only had a faint smile. That pair of beautiful, glass-like eyes looked at him as if he was looking at a pile of disgusting trash. Lan Yaozong gulped and forced a smile. Qingfen, you won't kill me, right? You should know how good I've been to you all these years. You're not that kind of ungrateful person, aren't you? The smile on the corner of Yi Qingfeng's mouth deepened, with a hint of mockery and disgust. Of course I won't kill you. You are the best nourishment for the Avicii Pagoda. All right. It's fine as long as you don't kill him. As long as Yi Qingfeng didn't kill him immediately, he still had a chance to turn the situation around. No, even if Yi Qingfeng really killed him. As long as he still had the treasures he had obtained from Wushang Palace, he would not die. 10 years, 20 years, or even 100 or 1,000 years. One day, he would definitely make a comeback. Thinking about this, Lan Yaozong's expression gradually returned to normal. However, a mournful scream came from Lan Yaozong. He fell to the ground, wailing and rolling on the ground. The thin iron wires were connected to form a net, binding him tightly. The thin blades on the iron wires were cutting his flesh piece by piece. Lan Yaozong, does it feel good to be cut by 1,000 blades? Ha 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 ha. Yi Aishan and the other 3 had already gotten rid of the 1,000 blades cutting rope and came to Yi Qingfeng's side. Chapter 38-58. Yi Huang was covered with wounds, but he couldn't help laughing when he saw Lan Yaozong's miserable appearance. Yi Qingfeng said coldly, "Watch them." "Don't worry, National Master." Yi Qingfeng's figure disappeared, and the next moment, he appeared in front of Ghost Face. "Slave Yi, what are you doing?" "Guards, come and protect me. I am the king of the Lan Empire, you can't kill me. This is the iron law of the floating island, Slave Yi, do you hear me?" "Aw aw aw aw." Yi Atian looked away, and a smile slowly bloomed on his face. "We have been waiting for this day." Yi Oxuan continued, "For this day, we have sacrificed too much." He looked down at his ugly scaly hands and couldn't help but chuckle. Yi Huang licked the blood from the corner of his mouth, and whispered, "National Master has sacrificed more than we have." Yi Atian gently patted him on the shoulder. "Anyway, we can finally avenge the young master. Once we're underground, we'll be able to face our master." Yi Ati suddenly lowered his eyes, and his voice sounded like he was about to cry, "But National Master, he won't even have the chance to meet the young master in the next life." Ghostface's body was also wrapped by the cutting 1,000 knives, and he was rolling on the ground like Lan Yaozong. Without a commander, the 100,000 soldiers of the Dark Knight army immediately became scattered. The battlefield became one-sided. The Xiaoyao army ushered in their first great victory. Looking at the white-robed zither player, the stunning girl, slowly descending from the sky. No one knew who started it first, but the free unfettered soldier shouted loudly. Xiaoyao, who else but me can do it? Xiaoyao, dominate the world." His voice shook the mountains and rivers, and his aura shook the 9 provinces. From now on, no matter where the people of the floating island went, no one would forget Xiaoyao City. No one would ever forget Liberty City, and no one would ever forget the musician called Jun Mayan. Mu Yan had just landed on the ground. The people of the Xiaoyao sect surrounded her. "Little sister, are you okay?" "Sixth sister, you are really amazing. Now your feather grace can cover hundreds of thousands of soldiers at the same time. Ha ha ha, if the Xiaoyao sect fights in groups, won't we be invincible?" Mu Yan is about to say something. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from underground again. Mu Yan's complexion changes, and he promptly shouts, "Quickly retreat." The other members of the Xiaoyao sect also reacted quickly. Just as Mayan's voice left her mouth, Yun Ruhan and the others had already flown up into the sky. Screams could be heard one after another. Mu Yan steadies herself in the air and looks down. Even with her composure, she couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. The screams just now came from the people of the 3 alliances, 6 families and 8 sects. Different from Mu Yan and the others who instantly soared into the sky. All of them had fallen into the pit. Clearly, every single one of them was a high-level cultivator above the earth creation realm. But after falling into the pit, none of them could fly up. Under their feet, it was as if there were ghostly claws grabbing at them, pulling at them, preventing them from escaping. The pit was very, very deep. Looking down from the sky, it was almost impossible to see the bottom. One could only vaguely see a dark red light flickering. As the dark red light flickered, the bodies of those closest to the bottom of the pit seemed to be eaten by something, and they began to disappear rapidly. He did not stop her at all and retreated. Luo Yu, this is really strange. Now, even he was starting to doubt whether what sixth senior sister and the others said was true. It was one thing for Tian, Di, Xian, and Huang to be gentle towards him, but why were their expressions mixed with respect and joy? I didn't know them before, did I? When Yi Qingfeng faced the others, he always had a faint and cold smile on his lips. Like he was joking, like he was careless, like he was mocking everything in the world. But as soon as he saw Luo Yu, the smile on his face disappeared completely. He didn't even bother to look at her. Chapter 3860. Luo Yu couldn't help but feel nervous again. Was this what sixth senior sister said? She treated him differently. Would he succeed if he begged for mercy? Don't be ridiculous. She obviously didn't like him, okay? What do you want from me? Yi Qingfeng asked. Before Luo Yu could answer, he said coldly, what happened here has nothing to do with Liberty City. Why don't you leave? Luo Yu swallowed. Pointing at Gu Feiping and the others who were still screaming, he told them why he had come. The person in front of him didn't say anything. He didn't even look at him. The energy at the bottom of the pit curled up and formed a strong wind, blowing his clothes and long hair up. Luo Yu finally realized. The cruel and cold imperial advisor in front of him was so skinny, as if he could be blown apart by the wind. Just when Luo Yu thought he wouldn't agree, Yi Qingfeng suddenly waved his hand. Then, dozens of people floated up from the bottom of the pit. There were the leaders and disciples of the Micro-Moon Pavilion and the Grand Goose sect. There was Xiang Yunzhou, the leader of the Sacred Heaven Alliance, and his subordinates. There were also some cultivators who had shown that they knew nothing about the past 10,000 years ago in the battle just now. Luo Yu couldn't react immediately. He didn't expect that Yi Qingfeng would really let them go because of his words. Also, he let so many people go. Luo Yu opened his mouth. For the first time, he had a strange feeling. He didn't like to keep his words to himself. Thinking of this, he asked without hesitation, my sixth senior sister said you treated me differently. But Yi Qingfeng, I don't know you. On the contrary, I have a grudge against you. Why did you treat me differently? Now that he thought about it, from the first time he met Yi Qingfeng in Liberty City until now, this man had never harmed him or even forced him to do anything. On the contrary, when Xiang Weiran and the Blue Glory sect wanted to kill him, he saved him again and again. Luo Yu's words finally made Yi Qingfeng turn around slowly. That pair of beautiful eyes was still cold, but there seemed to be some kind of emotion that was higher than the mountains and deeper than the sea. Just consider it as what I owed you in my previous life. Luo Yu opened his eyes slightly and wanted to ask more. But Yi Qingfeng had already looked away and said coldly, I've done what you asked. Now, can Liberty City get out of here? Luo Yu was stunned. Who was this guy? How could he turn hostile just like that? However, when he remembered that the other party had just released him, he could only grit his teeth and force a smile. All right, the Imperial Preceptor has ordered us to scram immediately, all right? With that, he turned to leave. However, just as he took a step forward, he heard a hoarse voice behind him. Leave the floating island and never look back. In this life, you have the most beautiful and brilliant future, and you have loved ones who sincerely protect you. In this life, you will definitely live very well. However, Chu Shi, your night slave will no longer be able to accompany you. Luo Yu's footsteps stopped. He felt that Yi Qingfeng's tone was very strange. It was as if he was talking to someone he knew. Just as he was about to turn around, he heard a scream. "Little Seven, be careful." It was Mu Yan's voice. Almost as soon as the words entered her ears, Luo Yu immediately leapt up and retreated. However, he was still a step too late. A violent wave of air surged up from the bottom of the pit. It formed a huge energy ball and charged towards Luo Yu. Luo Yu had already summoned his puppet. However, when the monarch puppet touched the energy ball, it was directly split into two halves. Chapter 3861. On the other side, Mu Yan, Yun Ruhan, and the others' faces changed as they rushed over like lightning. The sound wall formed by the zither was quickly being formed. But they were still a step too late. A pseudo-monarch puppet couldn't even withstand one blow. If Luo Yu was hit by this energy ball, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, at this moment, a figure appeared in front of Luo Yu. Bang! After a loud noise, a strong smell of blood permeated Luo Yu's nose. Air waves surged, sand and stones flew everywhere. But he didn't feel any pain on his body. State Preceptor. State Preceptor, how are you? How could you let yourself get hurt so badly at this time? Luo Yu turned around in a daze. She saw that the figure that had always seemed extremely cold and powerful, that made her afraid, that she couldn't catch up to, was covered in blood and slowly falling down. There was a huge bloody hole in his chest. The bloody hole should be where his heart should be. But she couldn't see his heart. Luo Yu reacted quickly and reached out to support him before he fell to the ground. "Yi Qingfeng, you, why did you save me?" Again and again, he didn't even care about his life. Yi Qingfeng pushed away the hand that was supporting him and raised his hand. The water qilin appeared beside him. The huge beast roared at the sky, opened its bloody mouth, and bit forward. There was an energy ball that had just exploded and shrunk by half, but it didn't completely disappear. When the water qilin bit it, there was a scream from the energy ball. Luo Yu slightly widened her eyes. That was Lan Yaozong's voice. After the scream, the blue brilliant sect master's hysterical laughter rang out. "Yi Qingfeng, I said that I won't die. No matter how much you want to kill me, as long as I have the immortal medicine that Wushang Palace left for me, I will live forever. And you? Completely activate the Avicii Pagoda and destroy the Heaven Halberd. The moment the Heaven Halberd is destroyed, the backlash will be enough to make your soul fly away and scatter. You and your lackeys will die without a doubt. I am the true ruler of this country, the person who rules over the world." The water qilin's throat let out an angry growl. It suddenly bit down. Lan Yaozong immediately screamed again. If such a powerful divine beast had bitten a human, even a heaven-breaking tier elite would have died a long time ago. However, the strange thing was that although the Blue Glory sect was screaming, he was still alive. "Ha ha ha. Yi Qingfeng, didn't you want to avenge Lan Chushi? Unfortunately, your injustice will never be fulfilled, because I am immortal and indestructible. If I can make a comeback once, I can make a comeback a second time. At that time, I will dig out Lan Chushi's corpse and grind his bones to ashes." Ha 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 ha. That's right, there's also the little brat you're so protective of. Although his body contains my bloodline, he is too disobedient. What is more disgusting is that he can summon the real divine beast, Bai Zai, just like Lan Chushi. Do you think I can't tell? You treat him as Lan Chushi's substitute, that's why you protect him. But how can I let you do as you wish? Once I regain my strength, I will make sure that he dies thoroughly. I will make sure that there is no trace of Lan Chushi left in this world. Chapter 3862. Using him as Lan Chushi's substitute? No way. Do I look like that gentle and jade-like young man? Or was it because he could summon the divine beast by Zay? Luo Yu frowned. She did not know why, but she felt a little unhappy. Lan Luoyu was Lan Luoyu, unique in the world. He was definitely not someone's substitute. He took a few steps forward with a cold face and beckoned the water Qilin over. The water Qilin blinked its bell-like eyes, then obediently spat out a ball of something in its mouth. It was no longer an energy ball, but a bloody body without limbs. Lan Yaozong's limbs and abdomen were already eaten by the water Qilin. But strangely, his head and heart seemed to be protected by something. No matter how hard the water Qilin bit, it could not break them. The strangest thing was that as time passed, Lan Yaozong's body, which was full of holes, began to grow on its own. Yi Qingfeng's expression was cold. He stood up shakily and walked in front of Lan Yaozong. He formed a sword with his fingers, and a bone-piercing cold light shot out. Lan Yaozong immediately let out a shrill scream. Half of his head had been blown off, and his brains were flowing everywhere. But after crying for a while, Lan Yaozong's body lit up with a faint blue-black light. The broken head actually began to grow again. Ha! Ha 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 ha! Yi Qingfeng, did you see that? You can't kill me. I am immortal. I will soon become the ruler of the 3 realms. Ha ha ha, what a pity. This gift from Wushang Palace should have belonged to Lan Chushi, but that idiot actually gave up on it and chose to revive you. So, this gift has a chance to fall into my hands. If Lan Chushi wasn't so stupid, he would be the one who is immortal today. Ha ha ha, Yi Qingfeng clenched his fists tightly. Blood dripped from the gaps of his fingers. Luo Yu looked at this scene, and an indescribable anger suddenly surged in his heart. He suddenly took a step forward and shook his wrist. Countless small puppet insects flew out of his sleeves and pounced towards Lan Yaozong. Ah! A heart-wrenching and lung-splitting howl resounded between heaven and earth, causing the surrounding people to feel a chill run down their spines. Luo Yu glanced at Yi Qingfeng and said unhappily, "If you can't kill him, then you can't kill him." In this world, there are many ways to make people wish they were dead. Why torture yourself for this kind of person? However, Yi Qingfeng waved his hand and dispersed the puppet insects on Lan Yaozong's body. What are you doing? Luo Yu was furious. Are you blaming me for being nosy? Yi Qingfeng shook his head and said in a low and hoarse voice, "Bloodline is fate, but it's also a sin. Once you're stained with karma, you won't be able to escape. I don't want you to be tainted by this. That kind of filthy trash has no right to dirty your path to the heavens." At this point, he closed his eyes, and the faintly discernible tenderness between his brows slowly faded away. Furthermore, I already told you that this has nothing to do with the Carefree sect. Do you want to die with these people? Said Meng Hao coldly. Was he going to chase them away? Luo Yu was so angry that her cheeks were about to swell. Was there something wrong with this Yi Qingfeng? Was he the one who risked his life to save her? Was he the one who spoke sarcastically? Bastard, treating my kindness as malice. How much did he want to stay here? Chapter 3863. Luo Yu turned around angrily and was about to leave when a hand gently pressed on his shoulder. Sixth senior sister. Mu Yan smiled and patted his shoulder, signaling him to calm down. Then, she looked at Yi Qingfeng. Does the Imperial Preceptor want to kill this Lan Yaozong? Perhaps I can lend you a hand. Kill me. Just a little girl like you. Before Yi Qingfeng could answer, Lan Yaozong could not help but laugh. Do you know what kind of divine item the immortal elixir is? Do you know that as long as the energy of the immortal elixir doesn't dissipate, I am an immortal god? Ha 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 ha. Lan Yaozong laughed so hard that his broken body kept shaking. His face was full of pride and madness. So much so that he did not notice that a chubby little yellow chick was walking on its short legs. With its short legs, it staggered up to Lan Yaozong's chest. Why did it climb up? Huang Huang did not know. Mama told it to come, so it came. It was the most obedient baby. Its chubby little body crawled for a long time before it reached Lan Yaozong's chest. In the end, because Lan Yaozong's laughter was too loud, his chest shook. The little yellow chick was careless and slipped, rolling away. Woo woo woo. My butt hurts. The little yellow chick got up from the ground, crying. Its big eyes were filled with tears, and it climbed up Lan Yaozong's chest again. Lan Yaozong finally noticed the little yellow chick's existence. He frowned and subconsciously tilted his head back. What is it? When he realized that the fat chick did not have any spiritual power or magic power, he could not help but sneer. He looked at Mu Yen with a mocking gaze. What? Are you going to use this little beast to kill me? As he spoke, his body moved slightly, and the little yellow chick rolled down again. This time, it fell even harder, and tears fell down. But it did not seek comfort or hug from Mu Yen, nor was it angry. Instead, it flapped its little wings, revealing a determined look, and climbed up again. This time, Lan Yaozong revealed an impatient expression. At this moment, he only wanted to enjoy Yi Qingfeng's furious and unwilling expression, and then imagine his glory after making a comeback. Only then could he suppress the fear and anger brought by the pain in his body. Although the little chick wasn't a threat to him in the slightest, it was like a thorn in his heart, driving him crazy. Bastard, you're courting death. Lan Yaozong's eyes flashed with a brutal light. Could it be that Jun Mayan thinks that she doesn't even have the ability to kill a little beast now that she doesn't have her arms and legs? As soon as he finished speaking, his body emitted a bluish-black light. Something floated out of his chest, forming a palm-sized ball that shot toward the little chick. Yi Huang couldn't help but shout, "Be careful." It was the same energy ball that had attacked Luo Yu. As long as one was hit, it would be like being attacked by a Xian immortal. Even the imperial advisor was severely injured because of this, not to mention a little chubby chick that didn't even have the slightest spiritual power cultivation. Who would have thought that both Mayan and Luo Yu would have a calm expression, without the slightest bit of worry? How could this be? Lan Yaozong's incredulous exclamation pulled Yi Huang back from his thoughts. He turned his head and saw that the hurricane caused by the energy ball had messed up the little chick's smooth and soft yellow hair. Chapter 3864. The little chick spread its chubby little wings, desperately trying to maintain its balance. It kept making sounds that didn't sound like a rooster's, yet no one could understand it. Apart from that, nothing happened. He wasn't blasted away, nor did he die. In fact, there wasn't even a single injury on his body. This time, not to mention the Blue Glory sect, Yi Huang, and the others. Even Yi Qingfeng showed a startled expression. He looks at Mayan and whispers, "What is it?" While speaking, the flustered and exasperated Lan Yaozong attacked the little chick again. This time, the impact of the energy ball was even greater, causing the little chick to squawk and squawk in fright. It could only lie down with its chubby little body and use its wings and claws to grab onto Lan Yaozong's clothes, pressing its little head against Lan Yaozong's chest. No, no, how could this be? My elixir of immortality. No, you can't leave. This is a gift from Wushang Palace. I am immortal, this is my elixir of immortality. Ah! Lan Yaozong's expression changed from shock to fear to despair. The bluish-black light that had been surrounding him quickly disappeared. His head, which was already healing, began to rot rapidly, including his body. All of his cultivation and spiritual power were sucked clean in an instant. His originally handsome face instantly became even older and uglier than a malicious ghost. In just a few breaths, Lan Yaozong couldn't even scream anymore. He could only let out panting sounds that seemed like he would stop breathing at any moment. His murky eyes glared at the little chick on his chest. His mouth opened as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Huang Huang, come back. When little chick heard Mu Yan's voice, it immediately wiggled its chubby little body happily and rushed over. Gee gee goo goo. Mummy mummy. Huang Huang was very obedient just now, wasn't it? Mayan smiles as she smooths out its hair that has been messed up by the wind. She says softly, Huang Huang did very well. You've helped Mama a lot. It was rare for the little chick to be praised, so it immediately jumped around in Mu Yan's hand. Only then did Mu Yan look at Yi Qingfeng. She thought for a moment, then handed the little chick in her hand to Yi Qingfeng. What does State Preceptor think Huang Huang is? Yi Qingfeng hesitated for a moment before taking the fat chickie from her hands. The little chick was not afraid of strangers. It tilted its head in Yi Qingfeng's palm. Her big round eyes stared unblinkingly at the person in front of her. It didn't like being touched by someone it didn't know well. But good-looking people were an exception. Brother Bai Xia had said it before, looks are justice. A good-looking person could help Huang Huang eat 2 more bowls of rice. Thus, little chick flashed a cute smile at Yi Qingfeng, and blew out a friendly bubble with its sharp beak. The bubbles floated down onto Yi Qingfeng's face and exploded, covering his entire face. Yi Qingfeng expressionlessly returns a certain stupid chicken to Mu Yan, and lightly says, I don't know. He couldn't sense the slightest energy fluctuation from the little chick. This was also within Mu Yan's expectation. After all, even Di Mingju and little martial uncle couldn't find out the little chick's origin and characteristics. The only thing she knew was that little chick must be related to Wushang Palace. Mu Yan smiles and says, Huang Huang is from Wushang Palace. Chapter 3865. Yi Qingfeng's pupils shrank, and he couldn't help but look at Luo Yu. Luo Yu asked curiously, what's wrong? Yi Qingfeng closed his eyes and didn't say anything. He turned around and came to Lan Yaozong. Lan Yaozong looked at him excitedly, his eyes full of pleading. His dry lips desperately opened and closed, and an old and broken voice came out, Don't kill us. Qingfeng, save. Yi Qingfeng lifted his foot and kicked him back into the huge pit. His action was clean and neat, without any hesitation. Mayan and Luo Yu couldn't help but applaud this master for not dragging his feet. The screams in the huge pit had already begun to weaken. Most of the cultivators' bodies had completely melted, including their skin and bones. Meanwhile, those who were still bitterly holding on were currently looking at Yi Qingfeng with gazes that were either filled with hatred, fear, or pleading. Some people were cursing crazily. Some people were using all their spiritual power to break free. Some people were begging Yi Qingfeng, even kneeling down and kowtowing again and again. At this moment, the pit was like an endless hell. And Yi Qingfeng was the Grim Reaper wielding his scythe. After today, no, perhaps only a few hours later, these traces would be completely erased. From now on, the 1 country, 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 major sects of the floating island would be reshuffled. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before even the floating island would cease to exist. Master! Master, I beg you to let my grandfather and ancestor go. Xiang Yunzhou knelt in front of Yi Qingfeng, crying and kowtowing. Yi Qingfeng listened to the cursing and pleading, and his eyes looked at the bloody hell-like scene, but there was not a trace of emotion in his eyes. He didn't even look at Xiang Yunzhou. Yi Audi sneered, "Leader Xiang, when your Xiang family forced the young master to death, did you ever think about karma and retribution?" Xiang Yunzhou's face was full of tears, and he couldn't help but look at Mayan with a pleading look. But this time, Mayan just shook her head. "Leader Xiang, you and I are even. The grievances of your floating island, you should solve them yourselves." Xiang Yunzhou's face was full of despair, and he almost wanted to jump back into the pit to save Xiang Ba and Xiang Weiran. But before he could do anything, someone had already struck him on the back of his neck. Xiang Yunzhou only felt an ice-cold liquid entering his body from behind, and then he lost consciousness. The one who attacked Xiang Yunzhou was Steward Wu, who had once received Mu Yan in the Holy Alliance. He orders people to lift up the unconscious Xiang Yunzhou, then he deeply bows to Mu Yan. "Many thanks to City Lord Jun for leaving behind a glimmer of hope for my Holy Alliance." He then turned towards Yi Qingfeng. "Thank you for showing mercy, Imperial Preceptor." After that, he kowtowed heavily to the two of them again, and then he took out his flying boat and left. The people of the Weiyue Pavilion, the Hongyan sect, and the Situ family also came to thank Mu Yan. They looked at the deep pit with complicated expressions, and then left. "City Lord Jun, you're asking us what we should do from now on. Heh, what can I do? If I fall back to the immortal cultivation continent, then I fall back. Where I cultivate is still cultivation. As long as we are together, no one can bully me." Recalling Gu Feiping's words before he left, Mu Yan couldn't help but curve her lips. On the entire floating island, he was the one who understood the most. Maybe when Wei Mian and the others went to the immortal cultivation continent to meet with the Nether Fire Army, she should ask them to take care of the Weiyue Pavilion and the Situ family. Bookmark easy to read. Chapter 3866. Mu Yan has a hunch that the seven of them won't have much time left on the floating island. However, Wei Mian, Rui Nyang, and the rest of the carefree army obviously couldn't follow them. In that case, it would be better to let them go directly to the cultivation continent to meet up with the Nether Flame army. As for the desolate chi corroding his body after falling into the lower realms, there was no need to worry about that at all. He only needed to prepare some pills. "Why aren't you guys leaving?" Yi Qingfeng's cold voice came, pulling Mayan back from her thoughts. But before he could reply, Luo Yu had already pulled her back and said in annoyance, "Sixth senior sister, let's go before people chase us away again and again." Mu Yan can't help but knit her brows. She always felt that there was a trace of urgency in Yi Qingfeng's voice, as if he was very afraid that they would stay here. No, more accurately, he was afraid that little seven would stay here. However, this hellish place indeed made her uncomfortable, and she didn't want to stay any longer. Mayan waves her hand, and Wei Mian immediately leads the free unfettered army away. The members of the Xiao Yao sect also took out their flying treasures and left. Halfway there, Chu Moli suddenly said, "We seem to have forgotten something." Mu Yan couldn't help but knock her own head, looking like she suddenly remembered something, Avicii Tower. "Yi Qingfeng hasn't returned the Avicii Pagoda to me yet." Ling Yuxing said, "This Yi Qingfeng isn't trying to drive us away by any means possible because he wants to take junior sister's treasure for himself, right? No, we have to get the Avicii Pagoda back." The six of them looked at Luo Yu in unison. Luo Yu pointed at her own nose and said angrily, "Why is it me again?" The huge blue Thearchus camp was empty. It was dead silent. Yes. Even though he could hear the screams coming from the pit, he still felt that the silence was bone-chilling. Yi Qingfeng closed his eyes and hid the reluctance in his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, a casual smile had returned to his face. Rumble. The earth rumbled once more. The entire Blue the Arch camp, including the buildings in the Blue the Arch city, started to collapse. The wailing in the pit became even more mournful and desperate. Yi Qingfeng could vaguely hear Yi Shuesong, Xiang Weiran and the others cursing crazily. This was because beneath their feet, streaks of dazzling silver light shone. Their bodies, which they had been using all their strength to prevent from melting, began to rapidly disintegrate. Everyone in the pit realized that their lives had come to an end. At this moment, Xiang Weiran and the rest finally began to regret. Yi Qingfeng, I beg you, please spare us. We know we were wrong. We shouldn't have killed Lan Chushi back then. You can kill us, but please don't let our souls dissipate. Revenge breeds revenge. Lan Chushi has been dead for so many years, why are you still thinking about him? Yi Qingfeng, I'm willing to give you all the treasures of the Life League, as long as you let us go. Lan Chushi's death really had nothing to do with us. Why do we have to avenge our ancestors? Can't I apologize to you on behalf of my ancestors? Let us go please, boo-hoo-hoo. He listened to the people below confess their sins over and over again. Yi Qingfeng could not help but burst into laughter. Chu Shi, did you hear that? Can you hear the voices of these people confessing to you? As he laughed, 2 streaks of bloody tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. Chapter 3867. Boom. A sound 100 times more violent than the previous 2 tremors came from the ground. The entire floating island began to shake violently, making a buzzing sound. The screams stopped abruptly. Yia Huang glanced down, only to see darkness, no more pairs of eyes full of fear and resentment. Dead. 1 country, 3 alliances, 6 families and 8 sects on the floating island, those who had wronged the young master. Finally, they were all dead. Yia Huang and Yia Di hugged each other, crying and laughing, as if they had gone mad. Yia Tian and Yia Di also couldn't help but have red eyes. They looked at each other, only to see the sadness in each other's eyes. Yi Qingfeng slowly wiped away the blood and tears in his eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Are you all ready?" Yia Tian smiled gently and answered on behalf of the 4 people, "Of course, we have been ready for too long." In the huge pit, a huge silver halberd slowly emerged. The halberd was silvery white, extremely beautiful. But the halberd was mottled with terrible cracks. That was the pillar of the floating island, the sacred object cast from the body of mortals, the heaven-reaching halberd. Yia Tian only felt that his eyes seemed to be stung by the dazzling white light. His tears couldn't stop falling. But the corners of his mouth slowly hooked up, revealing a bright smile. Young master, Atian/Adi/Axian/Ahuang can finally return to your side. The 4 people spoke in unison, then spread their arms and pounced on the heaven-reaching halberd without hesitation. The figures of the 4 people gradually disappeared into the flickering light of the heaven-reaching halberd, as if swallowed. Yi Qingfeng just watched quietly, a distant and vague voice seemed to ring in his ears. The heaven-reaching halberd is destroyed, the 4 pillars collapse. The Azura wind rises, the people are plunged into misery and suffering. Only with blood as a sacrifice, life as a sacrifice, and soul as a sacrifice, can you stabilize a part of the world, and not let thousands of creatures be involved in your grievances. If one day, you really want to activate this murderous, ancient life extermination formation, please remember what I said today. The cycle of the heavenly Tao is a cycle of karma and retribution. The sins of today's slaughter might one day be repaid to the people most important to you. Yi Qingfeng raised his hand to cover his face and murmured, whether it's reincarnation or killing, I'll bear it all by myself. He only hoped that in this life, he would be able to live a peaceful life and never have to experience the pain and sorrow of his previous life. In reality, the karma had already landed on Luo Yu. That was why he had reincarnated as a child of the Blue Glory sect and the Shao family. That was why he lost his mother at a young age and suffered the hardships of wandering from place to place. In fact, he had almost killed his most precious treasure with his own hands. So, everything should end here. All the sins would be borne by him. All the pain would be borne by him. Yi Qingfeng closed his eyes and jumped down towards the heaven-reaching halberd. However, in the next moment, the corner of his clothes was suddenly pulled by someone. There was a tearing sound at the corner of his clothes. However, a warm hand quickly grabbed his wrist. A familiar voice rang in his ears. Yi Qingfeng, what are you doing? Yi Qingfeng raised his head, and the young man's handsome face came into view. He had obviously changed his appearance, but that person still had a pair of clear, glass-like eyes. And when he smiled, there were shallow dimples on his cheeks. As long as he looked at him, it was like the sunlight falling on his body in winter, melting his frozen heart little by little. Chapter 3868. Yi Qingfeng's lips curled up slightly. He looked like he was smiling and crying, I can see you one more time before I die. Is this God's mercy? Luo Yu was surprised. You guys want to die? Why? If he didn't want 6 sisters of Ichi Pagoda back, he wouldn't have seen this. He wouldn't have thought that after Yi Qingfeng and Tiandi Xianhuang killed everyone from the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects, they wanted to commit suicide. Why do I have to die if I can't get through? Are you poisoned or cursed? Let my 6th senior sister and 3rd senior brother help you. Luo Yu shouted as he tried to pull him up. He saw Tiandi Xianhuang jump down from the sky, but he couldn't stop him. But Yi Qingfeng was still pulled by him. Yi Qingfeng raised his head and looked at him deeply, as if he wanted to carve his appearance into his mind without a single mistake. Shao Qi. Can I call you that? A hoarse voice came from his cracked lips, with unspeakable longing. He heard people from the Shaoyao school call him that, so he asked. It was as if by doing so, they would be able to get closer to each other, much closer. Luo Yu almost spat out blood. You want to talk about how to call me now? Please, can't you wait until we come up? Fine, you can call me whatever you want. Can't you come up quickly? The power of the halberd is so strong, I can't hold you anymore. Yi Qingfeng didn't seem to hear him at all. He just said hoarsely, if there is a next life, will you still let Yi Qingfeng stay by your side? Even if there were no mountains to see, even if he couldn't appreciate flowers in spring and snow in winter, even if he could only be a lowly servant. As long as I can stay by your side. Luo Yu was startled, then he realized. Yi Qingfeng thought he was Lan Chushi. He clicked his tongue, seriously suspecting that this guy's mind was not normal. But just when he wanted to say it clearly, he saw Yi Qingfeng's eyes that were so low that they were close to despair. He said, okay. Then, he saw that perverted imperial advisor who killed people like flies laugh lightly. His sharp eyes instantly became bright and radiant. It was as if the word good was enough to give him everything in the world. Luo Yu was momentarily stunned. Her chest seemed to be blocked by something and she couldn't tell what it was. He pursed his lips and said, don't talk anymore. I'll pull you up first. Unexpectedly, Yi Qingfeng just smiled like that, then said hoarsely, it's a pity that I don't have an afterlife, I never have, but you are not Lan Chushi, and I am not Enchanting. I'm Yi-Nu, the Yi-Nu who promised to stay by Lan Chushi's side forever and never let him die. Luo Yu's eyes suddenly widened. Because Enchanting held his hand and pried open the 5 fingers that were holding his wrist one by one. Enchanting, what are you doing? Little 7, how I wish I was Enchanting. Lan Luoyu was the reincarnation of Lan Chushi. Enchanting was the reincarnation of Yi-Nu. No matter how many twists and turns we go through, we can still be together, forever and ever. It would be great if that was the case. But, I'm sorry. I can't let the 4 pillars collapse and the people die. I can't let these killings dirty your path to heaven. As long as you can live on, even if I die and my soul is destroyed, so what? Enchanting. Chapter 3869. Thousands of years ago. You want me to resurrect Lan Chushi? Huang Fuzun looked at the young man kneeling in front of him and could not help but shake his head. You two are really interesting. He used his life and 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls in exchange for your body's recovery. I spent thousands of years to repair your 3 physical souls and body. Now, you want to use your life in exchange for his resurrection. Aren't you letting his efforts and mine go to waste? Yi-Nu did not say anything. He threw away his pride and thorns and knelt in front of Huang Fuzun, the guardian of Wushang Palace. He kowtowed again and again. Huang Fuzun shook his head. The beast soul is destroyed and Xue Jin is dead. You should know very well that Lan Chushi can't be resurrected. The light in Yi-Nu's eyes dimmed. It was as if his soul was hollowed out. He was alive, but he was like a walking puppet. Huang Fuzun suddenly said, It's true that I can't resurrect Lan Chushi, but his 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls are integrated into the world of this floating island. If you can pay the price, I can extract 1 of his spiritual and 1 physical soul and put it in the place with the densest chi of heaven and earth to nourish it. If one day, his 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls can be restored by themselves, I'll send him into reincarnation. But if not... Before Huang Fuzun could finish, Yi-Nu said firmly, All right, I'm willing to pay any price as long as you send him into reincarnation. Heaven, earth, Xian, and Huang knelt down too. If Yi-Nu alone is not enough, please count us in. Huang Fuzun sighed. Idiots. Don't you even want to hear the price? I want you to reincarnate after this life. In other words, unless you don't die in this life, once you die, your souls will be summoned back to Wushang Palace and become emotionless puppets in Wushang Palace. From then on, you will be trapped in this cold underground palace. You will never be able to escape. But Lan Chushi's 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls might not be nurtured, and he might not be resurrected. The price you pay might be in vain. Are you willing to do that? I am. Huang Fuzun smiled and said, All right, I will fulfill your wish. With a wave of his hand, he threw a few pills in front of the 5 of them. Swallow the pills in front of you and recite my words in your heart. The contract will be established. I won't lie to you. Xiuzhe have long lives. My Wushang Palace does not do unprofitable business. Not only can this pill establish a contract, but it will also restrict you from leaving the floating island and ascending to the Xuxian continent. As long as one was unable to ascend, no matter how high one's cultivation became, one's lifespan would continue to accumulate more and more desolate qi in one's body. It would be impossible to extend one's lifespan, much less live forever. In a few thousand years, they would definitely die. You'd better think carefully whether you want to take it or not. Yi-Nu picked up the pill and swallowed it without hesitation. A moment later, a blue light emitted from his body. It was a sign that the contract had been completed. Tian, Di, Xian, and Huang followed suit. Looking at the 4 flames in his palm, Huang Fuzun smiled and held them gently. I have another request. Yi Nu said in a hoarse voice, I want to stay in Wushang Palace until I have enough power to avenge Chu Shi. Before I die, I want to get back everything they owe Chu Shi. Chapter 3870. Huang Fuzun said gently, this is not in line with the rules of Wushang Palace, but I have a good impression of you little guys. So, I can make an exception and promise you. Filthy demon possession, tearing heart and breaking intestines. Huang Fuzun looked at the expressionless young man in front of him, almost speechless. There are so many cultivation methods in Wushang Palace, but you chose the most brutal one. It was powerful, but painful. How could it not be painful to cut off half of one's body and turn it into a demon body? While hurting the enemy, they were also hurting themselves. But Huang Fuzun had been bored for thousands of years, so he had been observing their every move in Wushang Palace. So, he knew why they chose such a cultivation method that hurt others and themselves. Because the last chapter of this cultivation method was the method to set up the forbidden spell, Ancient Life Extinguishing Formation. Only by practicing this cultivation method could one activate the Avicii Pagoda, the pillar that destroyed the floating island, the Heavenly Halberd. And this was the only way to make the people who harmed Lan Chushi pay the price. Huang Fuzun said helplessly, I have spent thousands of years healing your wounds, and you have spent thousands of years cultivating. Now, those who forced Lan Chushi to his death are probably all dead. Is it worth it to destroy your bodies to practice the evil method? Why don't you enjoy the last moments of your lives? Yi Nu sneered, enjoy. What is there to enjoy in this dirty world without Lan Chushi? What's more? He glanced at Huang Fuzun coldly, Wushang Palace never makes a loss. Haven't you been hoping that I, Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang can end this life soon? Isn't it what you want us to practice the evil method? Huang Fuzun laughed and turned to leave. As he walked, he waved his long sleeves. The stone doors in front of him suddenly opened one by one. At the end of the stone doors, there was the dazzling sunlight. Yi Nu couldn't help but close his eyes. It was a world that felt like it was a lifetime ago. Huang Fuzun's voice came to his ears, I know you are here to say goodbye. Let's go and seek justice for Lan Chushi and eliminate the hatred in your heart. But Yi Nu, there is one thing you must remember. Once the ancient life extinguishing formation is activated, the heavenly halberd will be destroyed, and the 4 pillars will collapse. The Azura wind rose, plunging the people into misery and suffering. Only with blood as a sacrifice, with life as a sacrifice, with soul as a sacrifice. The heavenly Tao reincarnates, karma retribution. Today's sin of killing may one day be repaid to the person most important to you. Don't forget that one day, Lan Chushi might really be able to nurture 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls and reincarnate. Yi Nu clenched the small halberd that was full of cracks in his hand tightly. The corners of his mouth slowly curved into a cold and sinister smile. Heavenly Tao reincarnation. Karma. If there was retribution, then let it all fall on him. As long as Chu Shi could be reborn, as long as he could avenge the blood debt from 10,000 years ago by 100-fold. Yi Qingfeng. At this moment, Luo Yu's body was faster than his mind. Seeing Yi Qingfeng fall from the sky, he jumped down without hesitation, wanting to hold on to that distant and blurry figure tightly. Little 7. The anxious shouts of the people of the Xiaoyao sect came from behind. But Luo Yu couldn't care about anything at this moment. He only knew that he had to catch the person in front of him who was falling into the abyss. Yi Qingfeng reached out his hand, and the small silver halberd in his palm flew towards Luo Yu. The small halberd suddenly emitted the same silver light as the heaven-reaching halberd. Chapter 3871. When Luo Yu jumped down, he felt the powerful suction from the heaven-reaching halberd, making him unable to control his body. But after Yi Qingfeng threw the small halberd, his body was suddenly wrapped by a warm ball of light. Then he was slowly sent back to the ground. Yi Qingfeng. Yi Qingfeng showed him a bright smile. Shao Qi, in this life, you must live well. His fine black hair fluttered in the wind. His snow-white gown flapped violently. For the first time, the youth's smile seemed so warm and pure, moving people's hearts. Then slowly, it disappeared in the light of the heaven-reaching halberd. The Green Mountain is not old, and the young man's hair turns white. A lifetime of care, until the end of the year. Luo Yu's eyes suddenly widened, and he rushed out, almost disregarding everything. But this time, a pair of hands gripped him tightly. Shao Qi, Shao Qi. Yun Ruhan's anxious voice came to his ears. Shao Qi, don't scare big brother. Luo Yu blankly looked at Yun Ruhan. After a long while, he murmured, eldest senior brother, is Yi Qingfeng dead? Yun Ruhan glanced at the heaven-reaching halberd and moved his lips, but didn't say anything. Luo Yu couldn't help but look at Chu Moli and Mu Yan, third senior brother, sixth senior sister. Do you know what's going on? Mu Yan looked at Luo Yu with some worry. She waved her hand, and the Avicii pagoda shrunk to the size of a palm, returning to her palm. Through the Avicii pagoda's immature mind, Mu Yan could roughly guess the whole story. But for a moment, she didn't know how to answer Luo Yu. Because she could see that Luo Yu didn't want Yi Qingfeng to die. On the contrary, Chu Moli didn't have any misgivings, and said warmly, he should have sacrificed his own flesh and blood to stabilize the collapse of the floating island. Luo Yu was silent, his eyes staring at the silver halberd floating in the air. The halberd's body was crumbling bit by bit, disappearing bit by bit. Luo Yu didn't know why, but he felt as if something in his heart was disappearing bit by bit. Empty, cold, and unbearably lonely. Yun Ruhan patted his head, and said softly, let's keep watch here. Maybe they'll come back to life. Mayan sits down cross-legged and gently plucks the strings, playing a beautiful unsoothing music. Ling Yuma also sat down with Mu Yan and said with a smile, this is our first time coming to the Blue Emperor City. We will stay here for 2 days before leaving. Ling Yuxing said, I'm going to look for some food nearby. I've been fighting for a whole day. Ahem, I mean watching the show for a whole day. I'm a little hungry. Qin Zhou brought the spiritual fruit pastries in front of Luo Yu. Little 7, eat. If it's sweet, then I won't feel sad anymore. Luo Yu felt that her eyes were a little warm and her chest was sore. What was originally missing did not return, but he did not feel cold and lonely. Because he still had the Xiaoyao school, and so many good senior brothers and senior sisters. Luo Yu grabbed a spirit fruit and sat down beside Mayan. She listened to the beautiful music while looking at the heaven-reaching halberd that was gradually disintegrating. She muttered softly, Yi Qingfeng, what is my relationship with Lan Chushi? What's my relationship with you? Will we really never meet again? Wushang Palace. 5 flames flew over from afar, and fell into Huang Fuzun's hands. Huang Fuzun showed a satisfied expression. There are 5 more puppets in Wushang Palace. Ha! His eyes suddenly widened, revealing an expression of disbelief. Chapter 3872. How could this be? How could Yi Nu's soul be stained with the young master's aura? Huang Fuzun was shocked for a while and then frowned slightly. Since they are stained with the young master's aura, they can't be puppets anymore. What a pity. They are 5 souls that I like so much. But soon, Huang Fuzun smiled, forget it. Since you are protected by the young master, how about I give you a chance to reincarnate? Anyway, the gate of heaven is open. Maybe I can leave Wushang Palace soon. Thinking of this, Huang Fuzun waved his hand. The 5 flames flew out and disappeared in the darkness. Blue Emperor's Camp. The 7 people of the Xiaoyao sect waited for 3 days and 3 nights beside the huge pit until the heaven-reaching halberd completely collapsed. Luo Yu finally gave up. He heaved a long sigh and suppressed the dull pain in his heart. He said with a smile, let's go back. I miss the warm bed in Carefree City. Yun Ruhan rubbed his head gently, okay, let's go back. Ling Yuxing, who had always been the most careful, suddenly exclaimed. He pointed at the silver halberd on Luo Yu's waist and said, Xiao Qi, look at this halberd. Isn't it brighter? Are the cracks on it gone? Luo Yu quickly picked up the pendant on his waist. Then, he found that the halberd was silver and beautiful. There was not even a crack on it. That's strange. When did the cracks disappear? Everyone looked at each other and shook their heads. Even Chu Moli couldn't tell why. But Luo Yu suddenly felt that the huge stone on his chest had disappeared. His body was indescribably relaxed. His heart seemed to be filled with hope and vitality again. Come on, let's go back. We can only eat barbecue in this damn place. I'm so sick of it. How dare you say that? Don't you know who we are accompanying? Xiao Qi, are you complaining that my cooking is not good enough? The laughter of the 7 people gradually faded away. The entire Blue Emperor's camp returned to peace. It also indicated that the war that decided the fate of the sky-floating island had finally come to an end. Carefree City. Because of the departure of Mu Yan's group of 7 and the Carefree army, the entire Carefree City seemed deserted. Yi Qingfeng summoned his water Qilin and used its skill, flooding Golden Mountain, which caused most of the buildings in the city to collapse. However, the cultivators in the city were not in the mood to rebuild. Especially when the ground shook, everyone's faces were filled with panic. From time to time, they would look at the sky, waiting for the moment when their fate would be pronounced. Could the Castellan and the 100,000 free army return safely? Would Imperial Preceptor Yi Qingfeng's scheme succeed? Would the floating island face a calamity? At the top of the 6 Stars Pagoda, Xiao Bao stood in front of the window with the fat rabbit in his arms, staring blankly at the horizon. The fat rabbit wiggled its furry body in his arms. She licked his hand with her pink tongue. Xiao Bao lowered his head and stroked the fat rabbit. Bunny, I'm fine. Don't worry. Mother will be fine as well. Little Bao's expression suddenly changed. The next moment, the small figure had already disappeared. Uncle Wei ran, what are you trying to do? Xiao Bao spread his arms in front of Luo Yunxiao. He looked at the person in front of him helplessly and with a headache. Mother said that we can't disturb Marshal Granduncle. Qi Wen, who had just shouted at Li Wei Ran, fell to the side. She was dizzy, as if she was drunk. Chapter 3873. It was obvious that he had been tampered with. Li Weiran looked at Xiao Bao with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. A dark light flashed in his eyes. Little fellow, do you know what kind of people need to go against the heavens to change their fate? If you come into contact with such people for too long, even if you're the son of heaven, you'll still be tainted by bad luck. Just how much courage does June Mayan have to actually dare to directly involve herself in this kind of cause and effect? Xiao Bao frowned. He didn't really understand what Uncle Wei Ran was saying, but he was probably saying bad things about Grand Senior Master. Li Weiran's smile deepened. He slowly walked past Xiao Bao and towards the center of the array. Why don't I end him while he's at his weakest? This can also be considered as averting a disaster for you. Later, tell Mayan that there's no need to thank me too much. As he spoke, a black flame sprang up from his fingertips and was about to be flicked towards Luo Yunxiao. Absolutely not. Xiao Bao rushed over without hesitation and stood in front of Luo Yunxiao. The black flames were about to fall on Xiao Bao's head. However, his tiny body did not move at all. Those beautiful sapphire-like eyes stared straight at Li Weiran, without a trace of fear or cowardice. Li Weiran flung his sleeves. Just as the black flame was about to touch Xiao Bao, it dissipated in the air. How boring. His eyebrows twitch, bored to death as he says, Jun Machin, you're really like Di Mingju, more and more boring, more and more annoying. Hearing Li Weiran's harsh words, Xiao Bao was not angry at all. She only tightened her delicate little face and said as if it was a matter of course, Xiao Bao is Daddy's child. Of course he looks like Daddy. Li Weiran's mouth twitched as his gaze landed on Luo Yunxiao. After watching for a while, he suddenly laughed softly. Defy the heavens and change my fate. Perhaps it would be more interesting if he changed it. Either we die without a burial place, or we set off monstrous waves in the Shushan continent. Just thinking about it makes me feel that the future won't be boring. I was really stupid just now. That's why I wanted to kill you now. Li Weiran seemed to have thought of something as he suddenly trembled with excitement. Xiao Bao couldn't help but want to roll his eyes. Uncle Wei Ran's illness acted up again. But he remembered that his father had said that he was the future successor of the polar domain, so he had to be dignified, calm, and like a little man, he had to protect his mother so that she wouldn't lose face, so he endured it. Little guy, when Mu Yan comes back, tell her that I've taken him away. Xiao Bao was shocked. Li Weiran had already grabbed Luo Yunxiao's shoulder. Almost at the same time, a faint light lit up under their feet, and the ground undulated like waves. Their figures were faintly discernible, as if they would disappear at any time. Xiao Bao recognized it. It was a teleportation array. Furthermore, it wasn't an ordinary teleportation formation, but a teleportation formation that only Third Martial Uncle could use. Uncle Wei Ran, you can't. Mother asked me to protect Martial Granduncle. You can't take him away. With a thought, the Bixia sword was unsheathed and slashed at the feet of the two men. With a bang, the entire 6 Stars Pagoda shook violently. The ground, which had been flowing like water, suddenly stopped moving and returned to its original state. Li Weiran's expression suddenly turned cold, but the smile on his lips became even more bewitching. His eyes were suffused with a cold light. Little guy, you want to fight with me? He didn't know why, but he felt very unhappy. This little guy kept calling him uncle. But because of a martial granduncle, he made a move against him. Sure enough, Di Mingju's son wasn't a good thing either. Chapter 3874. Who knew that in the next moment, Xiao Bao would say with a taut face, Xiao Bao won't fight with Uncle Wei Ran. If Uncle Wei Ran hurts Xiao Bao, the heart-piercing life-extending curse will kill Uncle Wei Ran. Li Wei Ran, tisk, kids are so troublesome. Ah! Grand Master, you're awake. Li Wei Ran was complaining when he heard Xiao Bao scream and jump in front of Luo Yunxiao. Luo Yunxiao reached out and patted his head before turning her head to look around. The 7 people were nowhere to be seen. Xiao Bao hurriedly said, "Mother and the others went to Londi City to save Elder Martial Uncle and 7th Martial Uncle. Grand Master, are you alright?" Xiao Bao and Luo Yunxiao didn't meet many times. However, he liked this martial granduncle very much. The reason was simple. Grand Master was very powerful, just a little bit weaker than father. Martial granduncle was very good-looking and was only slightly inferior to father. Grand Master didn't speak much every time he saw him. But he would give him many things. His gaze toward Xiao Bao and mother was very gentle. Most importantly, martial granduncle had saved mother, martial uncles, and martial uncles many times. So, when his mother said that someone needed to stay here to look after Grand Master, he agreed to stay. Now that he thought about it, it was fortunate that he stayed. Otherwise, Uncle Wei Ran was so disobedient and would definitely cause trouble for Grand Master. Luo Yunxiao nodded her head lightly and looked at Li Weiran with a surprised expression. Li Weiran looked back at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, his eyes filled with interest. Luo Yunxiao retracted his gaze and said gently, "Xiao Bao, Grand Master is going back to Shushan Continent. When your mother comes back, tell her." Xiao Bao listened carefully to Grand Master's next words. But Luo Yunxiao was silent for a long time and laughed softly, shaking his head. "No need to say anything. Just tell them that I'm fine and that I'm going back to Shushan Continent. If fate was kind to him, there might be a chance for them to meet again. If heaven and earth were heartless and fate was like this, then there was no point in saying goodbye. It would just be sad." Xiao Bao nodded, not really understanding. For some reason, seeing Grand Master like this, Xiao Bao felt a sense of separation and worry. "Grand Master, are you alright?" Luo Yunxiao calmly comforted him. Suddenly, something flickered on his waist, and he quickly took it out. "Master." Yunxiao, hurry back. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding air distorted, and a vortex appeared. Then, Luo Yunxiao's figure disappeared into the vortex just like that. "Martial granduncle." Xiao Bao cried out in alarm and wanted to rush over to hold him back. However, someone grabbed the back of his collar and lifted him up. "Little fellow, do you want to die? You even dare to touch the formless Prajna spin, aren't you afraid of being torn to pieces?" Xiao Bao was also shocked by the ripples from the whirlpool. "Uncle Wei Ran, do you know what happened to Grand Master?" Li Wei Ran smirked. "Don't worry, I won't die. It was just that he was instantly pulled to the Shushan continent by the teleportation technique. But it was just that he didn't expect the other party to use the shape-shifting transposition technique to be the formless Prajna void. Could it be that Mu Yan's martial uncle was related to Debi Temple? Things were getting more and more interesting. Thinking of this, Li Weiran couldn't help but feel restless. He reached out and carelessly rubbed Xiao Bao's head. "Little fellow, I'm leaving." Chapter 3875. Xiao Bao hurriedly pulled on his sleeve. Uncle Wei ran. TSK. Kids are really troublesome. Meeting those watery icy blue eyes, Li Wei Ran had no choice but to stop. "What else do you want?" Xiao Bao pursed his lips. After a while he said, "Uncle Wei Ran, have you seen my father? What is he doing? Why doesn't he come to see Xiao Bao and mother?" Hearing this question, Li Wei Ran's face darkened. This little guy is doing this on purpose. What's wrong with asking him what Di Mingju is doing? What is he going to see Di Mingju for? To kill him? Li Wei Ran took a deep breath, a sinister smile on his face. "Do you really want to know what your father is doing?" Xiao Bao nodded heavily. Li Wei Ran's smile deepened. "Little guy, there's no harm in telling you. Nether region and Demon region are working together to attack Polar region. Demingju is fighting against Demon Lord Jun Shirtian and Nether region Lord Inwuji. He's going to die soon. Little Bao's face instantly turned ghastly pale, and his little lips started to tremble. No, Daddy. Daddy, Li Weiran sighed, curled his finger, and flicked Xiao Bao's head. Little guy, do you have a brain? If Demingju died so easily, I wouldn't have planned for hundreds of years to kill him. I'm just joking with you. Xiao Bao's cheeks puffed up, glaring at Li Weiran. Uncle Weiran is too bad. He always likes to play with people. One day, I'll definitely play with him. Li Weiran smiled faintly. Is it because you know he's your biological father that you care about Demingju? Xiao Bao blinked, revealing a puzzled expression. He had always treated Demingju as his only father. However, the precocious him was also clear. Xiao Bao's biological father wasn't his father. Even his mother didn't know who Xiao Bao's biological father was. Seeing Xiao Bao's confused expression, Li Weiran paused, then couldn't help but laugh. Uncle Weiran, what are you laughing at? Li Weiran, on the other hand, laughed louder and louder. His expression was unspeakably carefree and gloating. Xiao Bao frowned and thought like a little adult, Uncle Weiran is going crazy again. Li Weiran laughed enough before saying meaningfully, so Demingju still hasn't confessed awe. So there are things in this world that he is afraid of. Xiao Bao asked doubtfully, what does Daddy want to confess? It's nothing. Li Weiran smirked. He bent down slightly and got closer to Xiao Bao. A malicious smile blossomed on his face. It's meaningless to say it now. I'm still waiting for the day when I can see Demingju begging for mercy on his knees. Xiao Bao's little face turned pale, and he said anxiously, why is Daddy living a life worse than death? Is Father injured? Li Weiran, is this how you threaten my son when I'm not around? A clear and melodious voice rang out. Then, a white-robed figure floated in from the window and pulled Xiao Bao into his arms. Xiao Bao hugged her, his little body trembling. He sounded like he was about to cry. Mother, Uncle Weiran said that Daddy, fool. Mu Yan's heart ached as she held his little face, wiping away the tears on his face. Is he lying to you? She coldly glanced at Li Weiran and said in a bad mood, you still haven't seen through it. This guy likes to shoot off the top of his head, wishing for the whole world to be in chaos. You can only understand half of the words that come out of his mouth. Chapter 3876. Only then did Xiao Bao heave a sigh of relief. But he had been scared by Li Weiran several times and hadn't seen his father for a long time. He was already worried, so his little face was still a little pale. Seeing Mu Yan now, grievances and worries flooded his mind. Xiao Bao couldn't help but hug Mu Yan's neck and bury his face in her neck, refusing to look at Li Weiran. Li Weiran's smile was bright, his eyebrows and eyes seemed to emit a flirtatious charm. Mu Yan really knows me well, stop. Mu Yan interrupted him and smiled. Li Weiran, thank you for always protecting Xiao Bao here. Now, you can go back. Xiao Bao froze and couldn't help but raise his head, looking at Mu Yan and Li Weiran in surprise. Mother said that Uncle Weiran stayed here to protect him. Li Weiran couldn't help but grit his teeth. Are you dreaming? Mu Yan ignored him and touched Xiao Bao's head. Hurry up and thank your Uncle Weiran. He even nodded. You're really becoming more and more like an uncle. Xiao Bao's eyes were sparkling. He jumped down from Mu Yan's arms and walked towards Li Weiran. But just as he took a step, Li Weiran's figure rippled like water and disappeared. Xiao Bao was stunned for a long time before he couldn't help but laugh. Uncle Wei Ran was really a tsundere. Little Master returned to the Shushan continent. Hearing Xiao Bao's story, Mu Yan was deep in thought and felt a little uneasy. She didn't know what kind of array it was to go against the heavens and change fate. But before leaving Liberty City to save Big Brother and Xiao Qi, Mu Yan had returned to Hexa Pagoda to check on Luo Yunxiao's situation. At that time, she noticed that Little Master seemed to have become a lot weaker. Would he really be fine if he returned to the Shushan continent under such circumstances? Also, Li Weiran said that the demon race and the Nether Realm joined forces to attack the polar domain. Was that true? Mu Yan's finger lightly pressed on the void spirit ring. The energy waves coming from the ring were stable and normal. Did that mean that Di Mingju was very safe now? Mother, Daddy will be fine, right? Mu Yan bent down and kissed his forehead. Of course, how could Daddy be fine? If only she could be a little stronger and advance her cultivation a little faster, that would be great. How she wants to immediately ascend to the Shushan continent and go to Di Mingju's side. Shushan continent, the border between the polar domain and the nether domain. 10,000 years ago, this place used to be a bustling city. However, a great battle had turned all the pavilions into ruins. Blood spilled all over the ground, and countless skeletons were buried deep underground. Year after year, the wars between the polar domain, the demon race, and the nether realm usually took place on this land. More and more corpses were piling up. Slowly, this piece of land began to be shrouded in a deathly aura, and not a single blade of grass grew. Thus, the people of the Shushan continent called this land the ancient battlefield of death. At this moment, the battle on the ancient battlefield of death was about to start. Compared to the allied forces of the Nether region and the Infernal region, the polar domain clearly didn't have the advantage in numbers. Yin Wuji stood on the divine flying beast, the white phoenix, and looked down at the man in front of him who he had hated for hundreds of years. Di Mingju, when you crippled my son, did you ever expect that your polar domain would end up like this today? His voice was filled with hatred, but his eyes were shining with fanatical excitement. Yin Yuani, the only son he valued, was destroyed. Naturally, he felt pain and resentment. Chapter 3877. But compared to the unification of the Nether Realm, his wrath over the destruction of his first son is nothing. What's more, he doesn't only have one son, Yin Yuani. Except for Yin Yuani, the others aren't born of his official wife, Fu Yushu. Their talents and favor are completely incomparable to Yin Yuani's. However, Yin Wuji reckons that he can still live for at least another few thousand years. At that time, even if he's an idiot, he'll still be able to cultivate him. And to kill Di Mingju and take the territory of the polar domain for himself, this is the only opportunity that comes once in a blue moon. Di Mingju still hasn't spoken. Han Yi already sneers, his face full of ridicule. Yin Wuji, have you forgotten the appearance of being beaten by my Jun Shang on the floating island? I still remember the scene of Domain Lord Yin's sorry figure fleeing at that time. What? Now that you've latched onto the demon race's thigh, you dare to bully our Jun Shang like a fox exploiting the tiger's might. Yin Wuji's complexion becomes incomparably unsightly in a split second. Possessing Yin Yuani and being beaten up by Di Mingju is simply his greatest shame and humiliation. But he also knows that he's not Di Mingju's opponent by himself. So Yin Wuji turns his head, looking at the black-clothed man beside him, exuding a biting cold air. Demon Lord, are you going to let those little bastards of the polar domain humiliate us like this? Jun Tian still hasn't spoken. Tian he is already shouting loudly, How come I didn't hear the polar domain humiliating us demon race? They even compare us to their thighs. TSK, TSK, TSK. Those idiots of the polar domain must have had some discerning eyes this time. Tianhe's words received strong approval from Yao Dao, Shui Jie, and the others. The demon race shouts in unison, "Long live the demon lord! Long live the demon lord!" The atmosphere is joyous and harmonious. Yin Wuji almost spits out a mouthful of old blood. Demon lord, don't forget. What is the purpose of us leading the army here today? Yin Wuji says through gritted teeth, if we want to destroy the polar domain, the first thing we have to do is to join hands and kill Di Mingju. Jun Shitian coldly glances at him, this lord still doesn't need your guidance. Right at this moment, Elder Chang's flustered and exasperated voice came from the polar domain. Min Wei, come out. Standing behind Jun Shitian, Elder Min Wei coughed lightly, walked out slowly and bowed to Elder Chang, long time no see. Elder Chang. See my ass. Elder Chang, who was usually cultured and refined, couldn't help but curse. What did you promise me back then? When the hidden abyss was attacked by the poltergeist ghosts, it was my family's lord who risked his life to seal the crack caused by the collapse of the sky pillar. He is also my family's polar domain's future sage, Kaof. In short, do you dare to say that your demon race doesn't owe my polar domain tens of thousands of lives? When we separated above the hidden abyss, we clearly agreed that the demons and the polar domain would mind their own business as much as possible. Now, you actually joined forces with the Nether Realm to attack my polar domain. Is this how you demons repay kindness with enmity? Are you shameless? These words caused Min Wei's face to turn pale. The people of the Devil Clan were also somewhat unable to lift their heads. The main reason was that during the collapse of the heavens back then, there were indeed many people in the Demon Clan who were indebted to the Polar Domain and Debii Temple. Now, it's only been a few months, and they've already given their saviors a blow. It's indeed a bit unjustifiable. Min Wei coughed lightly and said, "Didn't I say I'll do my best? I tried my best, but if I couldn't do it, then there's nothing I can do. Moreover, this can't be blamed on your monarch being thick-headed." Chapter 3878. You won't agree to a single one of our devil race's requests. Whatever the honorable demon wants is naturally of utmost importance. Since I can't get it, I can only snatch it. What did the devil race want? What did they seek? The upper echelons of the Polar Domain and Jun Shitian's trusted aides were all clear about this. The first was the Universe Mirror. The second one is Medicine King Han Chuzhou. But the problem was that these two things couldn't be given away by the Polar Domain no matter what. Han Chuzhou was hit by a vicious curse many years ago. Since then, she couldn't leave the Medicine King Hall. And the clone also could not be too far away from the Medicine King Hall or leave for too long. As for the Universe Mirror, it was the only spatial treasure of the Polar Domain. How could it easily leave the outside world? The only thing the Polar Domain can agree to is for Jun Shitian to go to the Polar Domain and see Han Chuzhou or use the Cosmos Mirror. But the dignified leader of a realm had to venture deep into the enemy's hinterland. How could the demons accept this? What they hated the most was being threatened and restrained. The fiend race believed that the strong were respected. Whatever they wanted, they just had to snatch it. As a result, things had developed to their current state. Min Wei still wanted to say something. Jun Shitian interrupted him coldly. If the Emperor thinks that my demon clan owes you, then in the battle later, my demon clan will not retaliate for an hour. That way, we can be considered to be even, right? In a battle that involved tens of thousands of spirit cultivators and demonic cultivators, the demonic cultivators didn't even fight back for an hour. Wasn't that no different from courting death? The people of Polar Domain and Nether Domain were all stunned. However, the group of people in the Fiend race were all cheering, not even half an objection. Wuji was about to go crazy. This group of idiots of the Devil race, in the end, did they still want to start a war with the Polar Domain? He actually said that he wouldn't retaliate for an hour. Wouldn't that mean that their Nether Domain had to go against the Polar Domain alone? Wuji said in a cold voice, "Demon Lord, you'd best think carefully before you speak. If you don't retaliate for an hour, do you want to consign the demon race to eternal damnation? Demon Lord, please look at the bigger picture." Tianhe said angrily, "My demon race has always believed in an eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. Not retaliating within an hour means that we owe the Polar Domain a favor. How are you not considering the bigger picture? Also, Wuji, who do you think you are? Who are you to teach our demon lord a lesson?" Wuji was almost seething with anger. The elders of the Nether Domain also had ashen faces. He knew that the demons were unreliable, but he didn't expect them to be unreliable to this extent. Now, they were all wondering whether it was right or wrong for the Nether Realm to start this war. Wuji took a deep breath and was about to speak to Jun Shirtian. In the distance, Di Mingju, who's been spinning the ring on his hand without saying a word, suddenly disappears. When he reappeared, he was already hovering high above the allied forces of the Nether region and the Demon region. Di Mingju looked down at Jun Shirtian and Wuji, coldly saying, "Ben Jun is very busy, I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Jun Shirtian, Wuji, go ahead and join forces. See if this lord will be afraid of you. This cocky brat." At this moment, not to mention Wuji, even Jun Shirtian's eyes were suffused with a strong desire to fight. In his eyes, Di Mingju, who has just turned 1,000 years old, is only a fledgling rising star. Even if Di Mingju's cultivation has already reached the immortal emperor level, even surpassing the current him, this will not change. Jun Shirtian's figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he already appeared in front of Di Mingju, sneering. Even when Di Beixian was alive, he didn't dare to be arrogant in front of this lord. Chapter 3879. Di Mingju's expression didn't change. Di Beixian is Di Beixian, Ben Jun is Ben Jun. Jun Shirtian laughed, a trace of admiration flashed across his eyes. "Alright, then let me see how much real talent you have." As he spoke, Wuji also came to Jun Shirtian's side. He looks at Di Mingju with a lot more coldness and hatred. If he had Di Mingju's talent, how could the Netherworld region be like this today? They had been trampled underfoot by the demon race and the Polar Domain. They didn't even put him, a dignified region lord, in their eyes. If it was when the Netherworld Saint Emperor moved unhindered, Di Mingju would be nothing but a fart. Jun Shirtian was nothing. It was a pity that there was no successor in the Nether realm. The only one with awe-inspiring talent who could inherit the Netherrealm's sacred flame was. When he thought of that unfilial son that caused him to be unable to eat or sleep in peace, a wave of agitation surged into Wuji's heart. He forcefully suppresses his emotions, sneering, "Di Mingju, today, I will settle old and new accounts with you." Whoosh! A terrifying pressure suddenly emanated from the three of them. The demon race and the Nether Realm army were so close that they retreated in fear. Only Min Wei, Tianhe, a few others, and Wuji's trusted elders remained. On the Polar Domain side, Elder Chang leads Han Yi, Ying Mei, and Xing Lang, and hurries over to support the formation. Everyone knew that a battle of the century was about to break out. But at this moment, a red light flashes from Di Mingju's waist. Although it was not dazzling, it immediately attracted Jun Shitian's attention. Because as the light flickered, he felt as if the blood in his body was boiling. Jun Shitian could not help but stop releasing his pressure and look down. When he sees what's hanging on Di Mingju's waist, his eyes widen in disbelief. He cried out in alarm, "Demon Core Blood Jade." Jun Shitian suddenly raises his head to look at Di Mingju. "How can you have a monster core blood jade on you?" The most extraordinary thing is that the monster core blood jade on Di Mingju's waist unexpectedly has the aura of a monster core connected to his bloodline. How was this possible? Di Mingju caresses the vermilion jade on his waist. His hand was scalding hot. Something in Zhu Yuzhong seemed to be beating violently, as if it was being summoned by something. He was desperately trying to flee towards Jun Shitian. Mayin's words unconsciously echo in Di Mingju's ears. "I didn't ask you to wear this demon blood core jade to find Xiao Bao's biological father. Instead, I want to find Jun Shiyuan. I heard that the demon core blood jade is mixed with the blood of the demon race. You should be able to get close to the demon race in the Shushan continent, right? As long as it near Jun Shiyuan, the demon core blood jade would sense it. At that time, I will be able to find him." The demon core blood jade reacted. Furthermore, the one who reacted was actually Jun Shitian. Di Mingju's eyes are firmly fixed on Jun Shitian, and he almost loses his composure and cries out in alarm. Could it be that Jun Shitian is Mayin's biological father, Jun Shiyuan? How was this possible? Jun Shitian is even more out of control than Di Mingju. In a flash, he arrives in front of Di Mingju, reaching out to grab the vermilion jade on his waist. Di Mingju's reaction is also extremely fast. He took a step back and retreated a few steps. Jun Shitian snaps, "Return the demon core blood jade to me." Di Mingju sneers, "This vermilion jade is a keepsake from Ben Jun's fiancé, why should I give it to you?" As soon as the words come out, both of them stare blankly. An unimaginable thought flashes through their minds. Chapter 3880. Jun Shitian said after a long while, "You said that this demon core blood jade was given to you by your fiancé. Who is she and where is she now?" Di Mingju also stares at him, not answering but asking, "What does this demon core blood jade have to do with you? Answer me first. Answer my question first." "Yin Wuji, everyone who was waiting for the battle of the century to begin, we've already taken off our pants, and you guys are actually chatting." Yin Wuji said angrily, "Demonic Lord, why are you wasting your breath on him? Once the fight is over, I'll be able to smell out any problems." Jun Shitian's complexion is ashen. He looks Di Mingju up and down, the words "a gift from his fiancé" repeatedly echoing in his mind. His eyes are critical and cold. Di Mingju also caresses the hot vermilion jade on his waist. Remembering the conjecture in his heart, his complexion alternates between green and white. The two of them actually ignored Yin Wuji. This caused Yin Wuji to be on the verge of exploding. A strong killing intent flashes through his eyes. A black light flashes in his hand, and he attacks Di Mingju. Di Mingju doesn't even spare him a glance. Crackling sounds of thunder and lightning could be heard from his palm. Then, an almost invisible black long sword shot out from his hand and slashed in the air. Yin Wuji's expression changed greatly, and he retreated several steps before stabilizing himself. And the hidden weapon he had just used to attack Di Mingju has already disintegrated into slag in a split second. Yin Wuji looked at Di Mingju with shock and fear. He didn't expect this man to be so powerful. The difference between an immortal emperor and an immortal venerable was only one level. But it seemed to be a natural moat. The black longsword made a crackling sound in the air, then slowly changed shape, turning into a huge longsword. The edge of the long saber faced Enwuji, ready to fall at any moment. Enwuji had never felt the disparity between him and Di Mingju as he did now. If this man wanted to kill him, he probably wouldn't even have the strength to fight back. The saber was about to fall. Enwuji hurriedly shouted at Jun Shirtian, Demon Lord, what are you doing? Didn't our two domains gather here today to suppress the polar domain? Why haven't you joined hands with me to kill Di Mingju? Jun Shirtian takes a deep look at Di Mingju, his brows tightly knit, as if he's thinking about something. A moment later, he suddenly turned around and returned to Min Wei's side, waving his hand impatiently, let's not fight for today. Di Mingju also calmly lands on the ground. Elder Chang and the others hurriedly surrounded him. Lord, what happened? Di Mingju says coldly, we'll talk after we get back. You're not going to fight the demon race in the Nether Realm today. Di Mingju's lips move, but he doesn't speak. What was there to fight? If the demon lord Jun Shirtian was really Mu Yan's biological father, that was his father-in-law. If he really killed someone, how would he explain it to Mu Yan? It was better to go back and sort out his thoughts first. Demon Lord, what happened? This subordinate seems to have heard you mention the monster core blood jade. What happened between you and the polar domain sovereign lord? Jun Shirtian said calmly, let's talk after we return to the camp. If he could, he really wanted to pull out a part of his soul and destroy it. Monster core blood jade. It turned out that he had actually left a monster core blood jade for his daughter back then. If he had known earlier, he only needed to follow the aura of the monster core, and he would have found it in at most a year and a half. Why would he need to waste so much effort? Chapter 3881. In the blink of an eye, the people of the polar domain and the devil domain have completely retreated. Each of them returned to their camps dozens of li away. Only Enwuji and the people of the Nether Realm were left in a mess. It was clearly a two-sided alliance attacking the other side. However, the Nether Realm was completely ignored. Domain Lord, what should we do? Enwuji's face is gloomy, almost unable to suppress his outburst of emotions. Taking a few deep breaths, he coldly says, return to the camp. Polar Domain's camp. Jun Shang, what happened? What were you talking about with Jun Shirtian before? Di Mingju and Jun Shirtian's conversation was through secret sound transmission. Except for the two of them, no one else could hear it. Even Enwuji, who was close at hand, could only vaguely hear the gist of it. This made the people of the polar domain scratching their hearts and lungs to know what happened. Di Mingju moved his lips, seemingly wanting to say something. But thinking of Mu Yan's blessing, he swallowed back the words that were on the tip of his tongue. If Jun Shirtian was really Mu Yan's biological father, Jun Shiyuan, then he must wait for Mu Yan to come and recognize him. Especially Ning Yanqin's death. Di Mingju knows that it's a knot in Mu Yan's heart. Before the matter is confirmed, he can't let too many people know for the time being. Jun Shang. Di Mingju comes back to his senses and suddenly asks, Elder Chang, do you know any news about the demon princess? Elder Chang stares blankly. He doesn't understand why his Jun Shang suddenly mentioned the demon princess. He thinks for a moment, this old man has only heard Min Wei mention it a few times, the specific situation is not clear. The demon princess seems to be the child of Jun Shirtian, who was lost in the outside world for several years. But it seems that even Min Wei and the others don't know the specifics. Di Mingju suddenly says, "When did Jun Shirtian disappear?" This. Elder Chang stares blankly. "This subordinate doesn't know the specifics, I only know the date of his return. Because that was also the day of the great shuffle of the demon race. The previous demon lord was beheaded by Jun Shirtian in public. Thousands of demons returned to their hearts, establishing the status of the demon domain, polar domain, and nether realm." Hearing Elder Chang say the date, Di Mingju's heart thumps. This world almost coincided with the time when Ning Yenxin was trapped in the Hell Rebirth Array. Could it be that Jun Shirtian was really Jun Shiyuan? Elder Chang doesn't see Di Mingju's bewilderment, and continues to speak, speaking of which, Honor Demon can be said to value and dote on this daughter very much. He hasn't even seen her yet, but he's already prepared a lot of treasures for his daughter, waiting to find her and give her as a dowry. But this is also normal. High-grade devils are fundamentally different from us humans. They're born from the gathering of hidden devilish chi, and they're born to be powerful and cruel. But it was precisely because of this that the rules of the heavenly Tao restricted them greatly. It was almost impossible for high-grade devilish beings to reproduce, and even if a devilish being and a human were to conceive a child, it was extremely rare due to the favorable timing and geographical conditions. Ordinary high-level devils are already like this, not to mention Jun Shirtian, the Devil Lord. When I first heard Min Wei say that Jun Shirtian had a daughter, I simply couldn't believe it. That's simply against the rules of the heavens and earth. It's no wonder that Jun Shirtian and the entire demon race would attach so much importance to this princess. They didn't even buy the person, but they already found a son-in-law for the princess. I heard that even the 3 live stones engagement was set, in order to find the whereabouts of the demon princess through the marriage contract. Chapter 3882. What did you just say? Elder Chang's long-winded words are interrupted by Di Mingju's fierce shout, scaring him so much that he almost shivers. Junjuansheng, I said so much just now, you're referring to, which sentence? Di Mingju has a calm expression on his face. His hands are tightly gripping the vermilion jade at his waist, almost crushing it. Damn it! How could he have forgotten? If Jun Shirtian is Jun Shiyuan, then Mayan is the demon princess. Doesn't that mean that the 3 live stone on Mu Yen was signed by Jun Shirtian? And the one who made the engagement with Mu Yen was none other than Luo Yunshao. My lord, what happened? Why do you look so pale? Is that demon princess related to you in any way? By the way, did the demon venerable interrogate you about your refusal to marry the demon princess? Starwolf smiled coldly and said, the fiend race's fools truly think too highly of themselves. What kind of talent and status does Jun Shang have? How could he take a fancy to that princess of theirs who hasn't even shown her face? Han Yi follows up, could it be that because Jun Shang isn't willing to marry their princess, the honored demon lord joined forces with the netherworld region to attack our polar domain? This is too tasteless. Humph. Jun Shirtian and the others should stop dreaming. If our Jun Shang says he won't marry, then he won't. Even if they make a scene, that princess of theirs won't have the chance to become the mistress of our polar domain. Star Wolf and Han Yi haven't finished echoing each other's words, when suddenly, Di Mingju coldly glares at them like a knife. That gaze was truly one of anger, depression, and irritation, as well as a desire to kill. Han Yi and Xing Lang are scared stiff, and their voices come to a screeching halt. Jun Shang, what happened to you? Did we say something wrong? Di Mingju, all of you, get out. Ben June wants to be alone. Demon Camp. Demon Sovereign, I seem to have sensed the aura of the Demon Core Blood Jade just now. As soon as they entered the camp, Min Wei immediately chased everyone out and asked with a serious expression. Jun Shitian took a deep breath and told him everything that happened just now. Min Wei was dumbstruck when he heard this and was unable to recover his senses for a long time. Demon Lord, you mean to say that the Polar Domain Sovereign Lord knows our demon race's princess, and the two of them are engaged? Jun Shitian paced back and forth in the room, his expression fluctuating between gloomy and clear. I don't know, but I'm certain that the Monster Core Blood Jade was made from the fusion of my Monster Core fragment and my essence blood. I can even feel the residual presence of a soul and a spirit within the Monster Core Blood Jade. Min Wei was stunned for a long time before he could not help but exclaim, no wonder the things that Zhongli, Darren had predicted were all indirectly related to the polar domain. Whether it is Han Chujiu or the heaven and earth mirror, even when the princess was engaged, Zhongli also hinted that we should talk to the polar domain. Could it be that Zhongli Darren had already guessed that he could only find the princess through Di Mingju? Wait. If the princess is already Di Mingju's fiancée, then what should we do about the engagement we set for the princess? Jun Shitian waved his hand and impatiently said, let's not talk about this matter first, at worst we can just marry both of them, cough, 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 cough. Min Wei almost choked to death on his own saliva. What do you mean marry both of them? Demon Lord, aren't you afraid that Di Mingju will overturn the entire demon race by saying this? Chapter 3883. He was the exalted Extreme Domain Sovereign Lord. It was one thing for the princess to marry him, but they actually wanted him to share a wife with another man. Jun Shitian looked at him coldly and sneered, all men in this world can have 3 wives and 4 concubines, don't tell me my daughter doesn't have this ability. Yes, yes, yes. Naturally, the princess had it. She could sleep with any man in the world, and she could sleep with as many as she wanted. Ahem, but honorable demon, now is not the time to discuss how many consorts the princess will marry. The most important thing now is to find the princess. Min Wei wiped the sweat on his forehead and said with a dry smile, do you think we should pay a visit to the Polar Domain Sovereign Lord? Jun Shitian shakes his head and says in a low voice, no need for the time being. First, send someone to investigate the identity of Di Mingju's fiancé. And that little fellow. Jun Shitian's mind flashed with Xiao Bao's adorable face. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the little guy was his grandson? That was why he had a good impression of the little fellow when they first met. Min Wei also guessed what was going on. For a moment, he was so excited that his face wrinkled with laughter. I was just saying that the little Gongzi is so cute. How could such a rigid place like the polar domain raise him? So the little lord is a child of our demon domain. He. If that's the case, isn't it only right and proper to bring him back to our hidden abyss? Jun Shitian forcefully suppressed the excitement in his heart, and said in a cold voice, now, the war between us and the polar domain is on the verge of breaking out, and there's also the nether domain eyeing us covetously from the side. Before we confirm it, don't act rashly, and don't spread this news. Demon Lord, don't worry. Even if it's for the princess's safety, I won't dare to let the news leak. Min Wei bowed in acknowledgement. Then, he couldn't help but frown. But if we really investigate the relationship between the princess and the polar domain, then this battle will have to end without a conclusion. I'm afraid that the nether domain won't be willing to let it go. Jun Shitian sneered, so what if you don't want to give up? With Justine Wuji that trash, could it be that he dares to oppose the fiend race and the polar domain, nether realm main camp? clanking sounds came from the main hall. At this time, the army of the Nether Realm was stationed in the palace formed by the Sumera Ring space. The Nether Realm and the new Elder Fu were naturally in the main hall. Damn Di Mingju, damn Jun Shirtian, how dare you play with my netherworld. Yin Wuji smashed a bunch of things, but his face was still ashen. The veins on his forehead bulged, and he almost couldn't suppress his emotions that were about to explode. The elders of the Nether Realm looked at each other, and saw the helplessness and sighs in each other's eyes. The Nether Realm was currently weak, and was unable to contend against the demon race or the Nether Realm alone. In the end, their domain master is still far inferior to Jun Shirtian and Di Mingju in terms of strength. And the Nether Realm had no successor. Yu Qin and the other elders could not help but shake their heads at the thought of the young lord who had now become a cripple. That was much worse than Yin Wuji. The Nether Realm did have some good seedlings with heaven-defying talents. But as it happened, Yu Qin could not help but shake his head. Others might not know of the existence of the First Highness, but they, the elders of the Nether Realm, were very clear about it. At such a young age, he had already inherited the third rank, Dark Yin Holy Flame. He was also the son-in-law candidate that the demon lord Jun Shirtian had taken a fancy to. If he was properly nurtured, in time, he might really be able to recreate the glory of the Holy Emperor of the Netherworld. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.